How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Pride, which is kind of pro wrestling and kind of not. I don't know what it exactly is. I know what it sort of is, but anyway. We got Brian Alvarez here. We're actually going to have Joe Silva up hopefully later in the show. I'm not exactly sure when in the show we're going to have him, but we'll be talking a little bit about the Pride show. Of course, we'll be talking about tonight's wrestling show. Got a little bit of a cold here, but anyway, no problem too much. Brian, how's your weekend?
It's pretty good.
That's good. I think I finally hit the wall this weekend with staying up all night for the Pride show and just with all of this stuff with the WCW sale. Tonight, of course, will be the final episode of Nitro, at least in its current form, on TNT. A show which may be called Nitro and may be called something else will debut on TNN. The time slot is not 100%. It'll be the time slots we heard was most likely Saturday night from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. A start date was not official as of yesterday. If they were trying to get the time slot official and the start date official so they could announce it at the end of the show tonight, which would be very beneficial to have that. And that's really where it stands. What's your thoughts as far as everything that's going on this weekend?
I guess we're going to start with the whole Nitro thing. I mean, I figure everyone's going to talk about, Saturday night at 11 o'clock, what a horrible time slot. But, we've said it before, if it's a show that people want to watch and it's a good show, then they're going to tune in to see it. And, I mean, we've seen Monday nights when Raw's been bumped to ungodly hours. It does a, respectable number. So I guess we'll see.
It has to be a great show, though, at that time slot.
Yeah.
I mean, a C show at that time slot's not going to do a big number.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, they've got to make sure that it's, equivalent to rebuild that company name, it's got to be close to equal to the WWF. There's just so many weird things.
I mean, one of the things we also noticed was, you remember every time that Vince Russo was going to do his big comeback, and he got the word out and everything like that, and the first show always got that ratings bump, but then it turned out to be the same old, and, everybody stopped watching after that. If they can get the word out, promote this thing like crazy, and really do something on the first show and on the first, several shows with new guys jumping over there and everything like that. Yeah, it could do something.
If it's a great show, if it's a great new type of show, I mean, one advantage of that late night time slot is you probably can get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
The disadvantage of that late night time slot is the newer, younger viewer that WCW was never getting is not going to watch at that hour because they're not going to be up from 11 to 1 on Saturday night. I mean, as far as the, 15 and under crowd that WCW was so weak with, and the crowd that WCW had maintained its strength with, which would be the 40 and over crowd, a lot of them aren't going to be move into that show either, unless it has more WCW, what's the word I'm looking for? More WCW representatives of the glory days than this current roster has.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not going to watch WCW to see Shannon Moore and to see people like that they are retaining, or even Booker T for that matter. They're going to have a lot of the old names, and I just don't know how many of those old names the WWF is going to want to sign.
Yeah. I think it'll be different enough that at least at the beginning it's going to do okay, and I guess it depends on, like you said earlier, if it's a C show, it will die. And if they really try and make it a big deal like an A show, and I guess Shane McMahon jumping over, it's a good start because, they're going to consider him like one of the top guys in the company. If he cares enough to jump over to WCW, I think a lot of it's going to depend on the promo he cuts tonight. And I guess...
I'm assuming the promo he cuts tonight is going to be strong. What's going to depend on
what he's going to say, as far as...
How well they follow it up, afterwards, and how much time they give it. And you got to remember also this... In acquiring this thing, it's added expense at a time when, I'm just from everything that I read today, I really don't believe the XFL is going to be around next season.
No.
And so that is a big expense that'll be off the books next year, that they're going to be off the books after April, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. If they had both the WCW, startup costs and the XFL losses to deal with, all of a sudden that big profit isn't so big anymore. I mean, just with the XFL, it isn't so big anymore. Dick Ebersol actually in the Washington Post today for the first time pretty much said that it's not going to be on NBC, barring a big turnaround during the playoffs. that NBC is committed to it, but they have to satisfy their advertisers too. And
what
so
do they consider a big turnaround? A 1-9?
I think it's going to have to be a lot bigger than that. I think probably, I think the playoffs are going to have to do at least in the 3s, which they won't do. There's no way.
No.
The show on Saturday night did a 2.0 on the overnights, which was exactly what the show the week before did, which ended up being the lowest rated show in the history of television in one of the big 4 networks in prime time. And this week will probably be along the same lines. Next week will probably be lower, going against the NCAA semifinals head-to-head for 3 hours. I'll tell you, the one thing that Saturday night did was whatever excuses were given for last week were out the window this week, and the numbers stayed almost the same. In fact, exactly the same on the overnights. Last week's big excuse was they went against basketball, and this week they did go against basketball for 1 hour, but then they had 2 hours where they didn't go against basketball, and the rating was barely better. So it wasn't basketball.
Don't forget St. Patrick's Day.
Come on, forget it. Don't even consider that one, okay? Let's see what else. WWF sold out the Garden. We're going to go to Joe Silva right now. Joe Silva was in Saitama, Japan on Sunday and was at the Pride Show. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really well.
Hey, how was the trip?
Oh, it was great. It's my first time in Japan. I had a lot of fun.
What was your thoughts as far as the show? I mean, the big thing on the show was the big upset night. And how do you think the new rules played a part in it, or did they at all? And what are your thoughts of the new rules for Pride as far as like the kneeing and the kicking on the ground?
Well, yeah, the kneeing on the ground changed everything. A lot of matches would have gone different without it. Every time you change the rules, you change the fight.
Yeah. You think it was too brutal?
The brutality thing is a hard thing. In our sport, we had very, very open rules at one time, and the fact of the matter was it still always proved to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
We've never really had anybody hurt from knees on the ground. But there's a lot of pressure for us from athletic commissions and things like that to, alter the rules till they believe it's safe, and that's the only way that we're going to get back on TV, so we've done that, but, it's the same thing if they want heavier gloves or things like that. Sometimes there's things they ask for, and it's not necessarily that they're safer, but in their minds it is. So if it was too brutal, I don't know. But I will say this, a lot of fighters who I talked to after the show said that they don't like the knees on the ground. I was very surprised. Vitor Belfort was very vocal about it, Trey Telligman, some of the people. Their thoughts were that it takes less skill.
Yeah.
Trey said he was a big advocate of no rules at one time, but he's like, I don't know what I was thinking then. This is a sport, and we are athletes, and we need to present it as a sport. So it's actually surprised me. But I think under those rules, the wrestlers evolved in this show, and I think you're going to see as long as the knees on the ground are allowed, that's going to be the new technique, is simply the sprawl and brawl. If they got heavier hands and the guy is forced to shoot on them and they're not good at shooting, they're sprawl down, and when they flatten them out, they're going to knee them into oblivion.
I don't think it'd be such a big deal if, the guys were the same weight, but when it's like a situation where one guy is really big or a lot bigger than the other guy, it's like... Well,
that's what I like so much about, having the weight classes and all, is you take away those kind of things. There were some excellent matches. There were some matches, booking-wise, their philosophy is, certainly very different than ours. I don't like having guys of unequal weight, and with our show that doesn't happen, we're not supposed to happen, because of our weight classes. But yeah, I didn't think Alon Goes should have been in there with, Mark Coleman.
They actually didn't have that big of a weight differential, though, on the night of the fight.
The thing is, though, I could be a 200-pounder, and I'm like 5'4", but I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's people, anybody can put on weight, but you go, is that really the natural weight that they should be at? Henzo should be a lightweight.
Oh, yeah.
But he had talked to me before this, no, I want to beat middleweights and I want to go up to heavyweight.
Well, that's stupid.
Some people, I told him, dude, we'll give you a shot in the UFC at lightweight, title, because he's an excellent fighter, but gone are the days where you can give up that kind of weight when you're taking on skilled fighters.
What do you think he was giving up with, because he could have been giving up 20 pounds to Dan Henderson.
Yeah, originally he told me that he was coming in at 190, but then I heard he just really started training like a madman and dropped a ton of weight. He did not look big at all. So, I mean, he could have been, 170.
Yeah.
Maybe smaller.
Did you have any thoughts on as far as what you thought the best fight of the show was?
I have a thought on what was the worst fight of the show.
Yasuda and Satake, right?
Yeah. That's
what everyone said.
That was pretty horrible. And that's to some people, to me, because everybody's looking, what's going to be the work in the show. I honestly don't believe that was the work. They just, there's no way they would have done it that way. It was so incredibly boring. It was just him pushing Satake into the corner. And that was it. Over and over again. The fans were booing it.
Plus, I don't think if someone was going to be sitting there to do work, they'd go with the distance.
The thing is, the one piece of logic that some people were trying to say was because of a lot of kind of mismatched matches early, the fights are going incredibly fast. So people are like, oh, they need one to take up time because everything is going so quick. But I really don't think they would do it that way. And there was nothing that looked, there was no holes in it or anything. It was simply, a guy just bull rushing Satake. I would have to believe they'd give Satake more offense.
Well, the other thing also is if you do a work, you're going to do back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And the other aspect of it is that I've seen Satake in questionable fights before.
Right.
And they weren't that bad.
Oh, yeah.
And Yasuda's a pro wrestler, so even though he'd have to modify his style, a pro wrestler can do that work-shoot thing, rather than just stand in the corner and kind of smother him in the ropes where he can't do anything for 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, it was not, there was nothing. I think he got off maybe one kick, and that was it. He really did not get much good offense at all. I really don't believe it was. I believe everything in this show was on the level. And it was just interesting, but listen, the matchmaking is interesting. But one thing they have to be commended for too, if they're protecting people, which a lot of organizations will do, you like to nurture stars and have people do well. The Vanderlei Silva match really didn't seem to make much sense.
No, it's too big a risk for no reward.
Exactly, the payoff was not going to be big enough. Too much downside, no upside,
and then they ended up getting burned by it because, as a matter,
Well, it also looked like I don't know for sure, but they did a Hickson piece before that fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they thought they were going to get it and then he was going to beat Silva and have that match or what, but there was a Hickson video piece on the show. I have to say, live, the show looked spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful arena. And
I heard that. Now, was the building totally sold out? Because I heard it was, and then I heard that then an announced crowd that it wasn't.
It wasn't. I mean, it was a big crowd, though. It wasn't sold out, but not by much. It was just like the very top seats.
Okay.
So close to 27,000, or what did they announce, like 20,008 or something?
They announced 20,006, and then I talked to some people that were there live who tried to tell me that it was actually 27,000.
Yeah, I mean, it was very close to capacity, but like I said, at the very top seats there was some empties, but, it was a very good crowd. So the entrances were very good. The Heath Herring one looked like something right out of pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
He's got, him and all his crew had on, big trench coats and cowboy hats and everything all in black. They look like the new Blackjacks or something.
Manny, what do you think this means as far as to Sakuraba, as far as a draw? Because obviously he was the big draw on this show.
I think it's a very big rematch for them. He's been on such a streak, such a win, and he went down like a warrior. They did not stop that fight soon enough. It was ugly. I think that's what freaked some of the fighters out, is that he took punishment.
But the
worst thing that probably happened for him is he did what everybody does with Silva, is he actually dropped Silva at one point, and it probably, he wanted to take the fight down to the ground, but I think he was willing to trade more because he got him. Silva goes down almost every fight, but he's like Felix Trinidad. He always gets back up. and fights even harder. But on the ground, Sakuraba was very hurt. He was taking knees and kicks to the head, and I thought that went on a little long. The Coleman one definitely went on too long.
Mm-hmm.
Alain Goaz was out from maybe the first knee that he took, and he took at least 3 more. So yeah, he was out, but then he woke up and attacked Coleman sort of. It was reminiscent of Vitor Belfort against Scott Ferozzo. How it's like, okay, it's over, and you get up and you turn away, and all of a sudden you're being attacked again.
Or when, what was it, Oleg Tokhtarov and Hensel Gracie.
Right.
Where he...
Except that took him longer to get up.
Yeah, he didn't even know he was knocked out, and he got up and he thought the fight was still going on.
Yeah, that's what Alain did totally. He thought the fight was still continuing, but he was really knocked senseless. The Gracie, the Henzo and Henderson said it was interesting too. That was a pretty good stoppage. It's like he got sprawled on, and it was hard to tell, but it looked almost like when he got sprawled on top of it, his head might have hit his own knee. I mean, he really got crushed down, but then Henderson hit him with a shot afterwards, like right on top of the head, and then like a hook after it, and then he was out.
What did you think about the whole Inoki deal?
Oh my God, that was the thing that was really interesting to me. I know this is my first time in Japan and all, and I know Inoki's reputation and all, but if you're not there live to experience, you just cannot believe how over that man is.
Yeah, I mean, people think about The Rock, and it's like it's not the same thing. It's just
this guy, they worship this guy.
Yeah.
They are hanging on his every word, screaming and yelling and chanting, and it was amazing. Nobody got close to the pop that he did.
Well, the thing when Inoki comes out is like, especially because they do this usually, like right at the intermission, and you just see people sprinting back into the arena when they understand that Inoki's about to come out.
Yep. No, it was huge. They reacted to him so much. I wish I could understand everything that he was saying, because everything he said, the crowd was laughing and reacting well to it. And
I think people that speak Japanese didn't understand everything he was saying.
I don't understand it, and I'm a wrestling fan. I don't understand what he was doing. I mean, he brought out 2 pro wrestling belts, and he gave one to Fujita and gave one to Mark Coleman.
That was very strange. Yeah, there was a lot of pro wrestling style angles.
Yeah, like but no, I heard they set up Kendo Kashin and Hein Gracie again, and it's like, didn't they learn from the first one?
Yep. Well, I guess they figure it can't get any worse.
Yeah, but they killed the kid's career the first time. I mean, it's not going to, unless he wins, it's not going to help him any.
Plus, the thing is, he probably in his mind thinks, I got caught. It was a fluke. I was not prepared, and I'll do better this time, because he couldn't do worse this time.
Well, he may do better, but I don't know. Well,
I don't know what good that's going to do.
Oh, it's the thing. Look at Takada. He got smoked by Hickson the first time. He still took him on the second time.
Yeah, that was different. That was like huge money. And, Takada, was all about money. You know what I mean? That was a big money draw fight. This is just something where, I don't know. Just this.
Plus, you had a guy kind of on a tail end of his career. It's not like.
Yeah, like a 30-year-old guy. Yeah.
I don't think he probably, it's probably an ego thing. He feels like, I could make a better showing. I want to make a better showing. I got embarrassed. I want to atone for it.
Yeah.
But
any other thoughts as far as the show went? Any things you felt like you learned from watching the show? As far as like ideas and stuff like that.
I said I liked a lot of the production, but a lot of it also I think works better for Japan. I like Japanese stuff, so it appeals to me, but as far as the American public, I don't know. And a lot of it's time stuff, a lot of like where they had all the fighters come out at the beginning, and they introduce everybody. It's very cool to see it, but it's like in our show, it's like, wow, that would be a big thing to take up time that would stop you from having more fights.
No, that wouldn't work in the United States. That's total Japanese ceremony.
Exactly. It's cool to watch for Japan, but I don't think it would apply to America. But no, I mean they were great. And it was a fun show. But like I said, some of the matches, and it's not even a critical thing. It's a different kind of thing. But our approach is so different. And that we have champions, we have weight classes, we try to have some sort of logical build, where right now Pride just puts on a lot of fights that are interesting. The one thing I would say, too, probably the best fight in a lot of ways would be Igor Vovchanchin and Trey Helligman.
What was your thoughts on that? 'Cause that was a huge upset.
Yeah, it was surprising, especially because a lot of people get hit by Igor and go down, and he rocked Trey, but Trey dealt with it and then just came back.
Did Silva just get tired, or Volchanski just get tired?
Well, even early on, he wasn't having a lot of success. It wasn't like he was doing great and then he got tired and then started losing. He was not really doing great right off the bat because he had a guy who had somewhat of a chin and could take his punch, and he is really very short to fight in the heavyweight division.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he gives up a lot of reach. You could tell he hits very hard, but he's given up a lot of reach, and if you have somebody who can take the punch, it's difficult. And like he ended up, Trey took him down nicely, and then Trey's working his guard a lot, and just he has nothing from the guard. Trey didn't have to worry about submissions at all.
I also want to make mention real quick that we had a, this is not confirmed, but right before we went on the air, we did hear that Scott Steiner was in Panama City because he arrived late, and there was definitely concern about that. Joe, I want to ask you, having to do with pro wrestling, the biggest, obviously about, because we've already talked about it, WCW being bought by the WWF, but to me the biggest story in a roundabout way, having to do with the future of pro wrestling from all this, not just that one guy is going to own the whole thing, but the lack of interest in the major cable networks in pro wrestling at this time, which is basically why one person's got it, because nobody else wanted it, or else the deal would have gone elsewhere. As far as your thing goes, there's a lot of people, everyone in the world's going like, well, who's going to be number two? Because there is no number two right now. Mm-hmm. And really number two is the first guy who gets strong national television. And you guys, the one thing that you guys have is a totally different product. What's your thoughts as far as, plans and things like that, and how this affects, I don't know if this directly affects you, but indirectly I think it does.
Oh, I think it does. And the thing is that the big part is getting back on cable, and we're working on that. And there's a lot of positive-looking things in that direction. And the fact of the matter is, when we were on cable at our height, we were huge, and the people who were running it had no clue what they were doing. They just kind of lucked into it.
They lucked into a good product, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the people, Zuffa knows far more about how to, I think, on our last show, we did that basically on 3 weeks' notice. We made the changes, and people were saying, it's the best show in years. And we had very little time to do that. They understand a lot of concepts that the old group didn't, mainly being that you need to create stars, you need to push personalities, you need to get across storylines, and you need to put on the best, most competitive fights. That's the biggest difference you're going to see in UFC now, is it's not going to be name guy versus tomato can guy. It's all going to be, guys who deserve to be in the big show, all, proven commodities, not just people walking off the street into the main draw anymore.
Now, what, as far as your relationship with Pride, would there be a chance that, say, a Sakuraba or somebody that's on a Pride show, Mark Coleman, could fight for you guys, or is it just one of those things where politically that's not going to happen?
Well, that's one of the things that I love about working with these guys. So much better one is they don't take an adversarial slant to it. We went to Pride, and they enjoyed Pride. They're fans of the sport as a whole. And as you saw on our last show, we were not afraid to say, when we talk about who the best fighters in the world are in a weight division, we listed people who weren't even in our show, and maybe never will be. But they're all about legitimacy. They're all about, this sport as a whole. Before, the UFC would act like no other organizations existed. Sometimes we would have somebody come into our show who had great accolades from another show, and they wouldn't even bring it up.
Well, like Dan Severn holding that belt that he held when he fought Pedro Hizzo?
Right. Of course, they were willing to let him be the NWA champion, but...
Well, that's a different thing.
But yeah, that's completely in the past. So as far as what will happen for sure in the future, I don't know, but I do know that these guys are willing to listen and work with anybody and work to help the sport as a whole. They feel competition is a good thing and a healthy thing, and they don't look at it so much as it's us versus them and get them at any cost. We feel confident in our product, and if we put out the best product we can, that we can stand with anybody.
Now, what right now on May the 4th in Atlantic City, what do you have confirmed so far?
It's still, there's some difficulties are simply in that the last show was so good that people, are thinking that, they made $1 million in the last show because it looked so good, and they don't realize, no, we're still not back on cable, and we pumped a lot more money into it without bringing more money in. So a lot of demands have gotten higher, a lot more stuff needs to be worked out. Plus, we're dealing with the way that business used to be done, where fighters are used to, we don't have to sign a contract till a week before the show. And we were looking to change that, but it's an education process. Plus, we're overcoming, that sometimes fighters and managers dealt with companies and they didn't treat them right or whatever, so there's a big suspicion. Everybody's like, you're trying to lock me up into this or that. So it's just a process. But I think we're going to earn everybody's trust. I think nobody's going to treat the fighters better than Zuffa does. And I think once we get over this first show where we're 100% in control of it, that it will get easier from here on out. But at the moment, we're still waiting on contracts to come by. We're trying to get those taken care of, hopefully by the end of this week.
So is there any relationship between UFC and UFC Japan, or is that pretty much dead?
That's dead.
Okay.
There's no relationship.
Now, are you looking at doing something in Japan, though?
I mean, yeah, it's a great market, as to exactly what it will be or when that time frame will happen, I can't say. But a lot of different ideas are being looked at. But so we love Japan, and the Japanese have a great appreciation for this sport. And, I think it just makes sense that sooner or later we're going to do something in Japan.
Okay, Joe, I want to thank you very much for doing the show today.
Yep.
And,
take it easy, guys.
We'll be talking to you soon, and good luck with the UFC.
Later.
Okay, that was Joe Silva with the UFC, who was talking about the Pride Show, which took place on Sunday in Saitama, Japan, and it was the night of upsets with Vanderlei Silva beating Kazushi Sakuraba in 1:38, and Trey Teligman upsetting Igor Vovchanchin. That was one of the bigger upsets in the history of mixed martial arts, the number 2 heavyweight in the world losing. Although the way they matched up, it's still a big upset. Dan Henderson knocking out Renzo Gracie, the first time Renzo Gracie's ever been knocked out in competition, and that was very quick, like 1:40. And Tadao Yasuda of New Japan beating Masaki Satake, which was probably the single most boring match, but also probably the biggest upset in the history of mixed martial arts, because you had a guy who's a veteran of this sport, an accomplished kickboxer, going against a guy who has been a pro wrestler, who's well over 300 pounds, 37 years old, never having done this. And even though the fight was horrible, he actually got a split decision out of the fight. So anyway, that was the main stuff there. We're going to talk more about WCW. Brian, anything else you want to talk about regarding tonight's television or anything?
Tonight's television as far as Raw Nitro?
Yeah.
I just want to, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Shane McMahon says, because it's like they have this situation where they own both companies, and they're going to want to start a war of some sort. And it kind of means you sort of have to bury the competition in what you say, but that's really not what you want to do as far as keeping another. I mean, if Shane goes out there and goes, Dad,
I bought this horrible, terrible company, but I'm going to bring it back.
This thing was dying, and I want to recreate it or whatever. Or is he going to come out there and say, look, Dad, look at what you're doing to your company. You're out there on national TV with this girl, telling her to bark like a dog. It's just horrible, and I'm going to take this company here, and we're going to crush you. What's he going to say? What's he going to say that's not going to bury one or the other?
Well, we'll find out. That's going to be the most interesting thing about the TV tonight, I think. Now that it's been several days and a lot of the talent stuff is starting to shake out as far as who they're going to keep, what the details are and everything, what's your thoughts as far as – because, I mean, the one thing when I look at that list of guys that they're keeping and the guys that they want, when I look at that list by itself, it's like, there's a lot of good wrestlers there, but there is no main events there.
Yeah. I think they're just going to do the if they want to make WCW right off the bat look strong, they need to get some of their top guys going over there. And probably one of the, they'll get Shane McMahon over there, obviously. I think a good guy maybe would be Kurt Angle because, he's a guy that could be a main eventer, but the position he's in now in the WWF, they don't really consider him a main eventer. And maybe someone like Benoit, just guys like that going over there to They need a top guy so that fans think, you know, if this guy who is at the top of the WWF is willing to come over here, you know, this must be something big. If they have a bunch of guys like Test going over there, it'll be B show right off the bat.
Okay, now here's the thing when we're talking about that, though. Number one, the guys who go over there are not going to be wrestling on the road, which means that you really don't want young guys that need ring time out there, which is funny because that's all the guys that WCW has. And the other thing is that I think that it should be maybe Helmsley and Undertaker over there. Although
Undertaker for sure, because he doesn't need to.
And the reason I say that is because I think that if Benoit and Angle are to go over there and they'll immediately become the top two guys in that company, it's kind of like, well, those guys were almost good enough to be on top in the WWF, and now when they go to WCW, they're by far the two top guys. I think it'd be better if it's a guy who already is a top guy. That way, Benoit and Angle become top guys because of the omission of two top guys, so they're forced in the main events in one company. Whereas Hunter, you know, Hunter's already established as a top guy, and if he goes over there, you know, him being a top guy doesn't make everybody else look Bush League and make the company look weak, whereas, say, Benoit going over there and being the number one guy in the company, they're going like, well, golly, you know, he was number 6 in WWF. He goes over there and he's number 1. What does that say about them?
Yeah. You know what I would say in the short term, but, you know, it probably wouldn't work out any longer than that, is if they sent Rock over there. I mean, he's doing the movie. He probably will only be able to do TV tapings.
You know what?
He can't go on the road.
Yeah, you know what?
But then what happens when the movie's done filming?
Well, there's always ways to shoot around that. You know what? That's probably the best idea of all. Because you're right, he can't go on the road, so it's not like they're losing someone who can go on the road. And there's no question that he's a top guy, and no matter where he goes, he's going to be number 1. I like that. Not that it's going to happen, because it's not. And it's probably better than what's going to. But anyway, we'll start seeing the stuff tonight, and hopefully we'll know when the TV is, and we'll have a lot more answers over the next couple of days. We'll start hitting some emails before we start getting to the phone calls. It's from Eric, who goes with all the names, WCW names being mentioned this week. There's one I haven't heard, Chris Kanyon. I would suspect that the deal with Chris Kanyon is his contract was very high with WCW, and they didn't want to buy a contract at a high rate, but I think that Chris Kanyon will, I have little doubt Chris Kanyon will get the opportunity to work for WWF at the price they dictate, which is a very key point.
Same with all those guys.
Guys, I have Alex Marvez on the line. He's got a little bit of breaking news, okay?
Okay. Alex, what's going on?
Dave, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Brian.
Great.
Hey, good. Hey, it looks like Saturday night is going to be the night for WWF on TNN.
11 to 1?
11 to 1. I'm not sure if they're going to announce it tonight, but that is pretty much the deal that has been struck.
Okay.
If it's confirmed, I think they'll probably announce it.
If they can get everything, you know, I's crossed, T's dotted, whatever.
Did they announce like a start date?
No start date yet that I know of, but they may have one. I still think they're trying to finalize all the details, but it is pretty much a go that it will be Saturday night. And do not be surprised that they go heavily after the Saturday Night Live demographic, maybe even resorting to the point of saying that Lorne Michaels was a guy who took away your XFL football or whatever.
Oh, well, that's good for 10 people.
Well, you know, they've got to blame somebody.
I wouldn't even want to bring any of that up.
Well, I wouldn't either, but, you know, again, they got to blame somebody, and right now the guy, you know, they're looking for some scapegoats. You may as well blame Lorne Michaels, right?
Well, he did cut like 47 seconds off of that game the other night.
Yeah, I heard about that.
They were so spooked they wouldn't show the finish of the game Saturday night.
Yeah, that they cut off the finish of the game. Interestingly, and this is on a separate note, I'm out here at the NFL owners meetings. The NFL next year, for their late season Saturday games and their playoff games, are going to move the start time so that the games end up in prime time. I don't know if that has anything to do with the XFL or not, but
maybe a final slap in the face.
Yeah, the ultimate coup de grace, right? So that's what I'm hearing, guys. I just want to let you know it's up on the website, so I got to get back to work on my other day job.
Okay, thanks very much, Alex.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, we'll go for another minute here, and then we will start. We'll go to another break. See what's the future of WCW pay-per-views? Do they have some sort of a contract with the pay-per-view companies? They did. That contract has not been picked up by the WWF. So right now there are no pay-per-views on the schedule. There will be pay-per-views when the WWF deems that they can do pay-per-views. You know, and there's no. When it comes to any of this stuff like house shows, pay-per-views, there is nothing close to a plan. They're going to roll out that TV, and when they feel it's hot and feel they can do it, then they'll make a try. But it's not like 6 months, a year. It may never happen. It may happen in 3 months. So that's the deal there. This says, I can't believe the overwhelming response of fools who are voting that the WWF purchase is good for wrestling. Oh, it's not good for wrestling. I don't want to say fools, but it's not good for wrestling. There's no way. It's something on the WCW website. What do you expect? What do you expect? I mean, that's an unsophisticated group of fans. No, it is. Hey, it is. Hey, God, that's the reality of it. I mean, they don't, people don't realize that wrestlers are going to be pushed around. It's not right, especially for people like me looking to get into the business. There's basically a no-way stance right now, if you know what I mean. Hello. And I see who that person is, who does not want his name recognized, but he is a relatively known wrestler who is probably out of work. I shouldn't laugh about that because that's really sad. Will Eric Bischoff still be at the Nitro finale? I'm almost sure he will not be there tonight.
No.
Let's see. What is this? Gimmick Battle Royal. I don't want to think about the Gimmick Battle Royal right at this minute.
I am appalled at the amount of feedback we got about that thing, by the way.
Why? It's going to be 7 minutes of comedy. I don't mind seeing Michael Hayes. The thing is that to a very vocal segment of the audience, because clearly in the building it wasn't that big of a deal, but to a vocal segment of the audience, the Honky Tonk Man cameo at the Royal Rumble was really fun, and I put myself in that category. I thought it was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're going to give us 17 of them, and you know what? It's like it won't be that much fun.
Why isn't Honky on that list, by the way? Did he burn his bridges last time?
Yeah, I don't know. This is from someone who goes, I'm emailing you from Australia telling you that I listen to the show every day, love every minute for it. I love every minute of it. For what it's worth, here are my top 10 interviews. Number 1, Tom Zink. Number 2. I think if we did a balloting, that would be the number 1. Number 2 is Tom Zink. Number 3, Honky Tonk Man. I'm very surprised that's that high. Not that he was very good, though, but that surprised me. Number 4, Bobby Heenan. Bobby Heenan was very good that one time we had him on. Number 5, Tom Zink. Number 1, Tom Zink fan. Although, I know Tom Zink's very good on this show. 6, Lance Russell. Yeah, Lance Russell's great on this show. 7, Steve Kern. Yeah, I loved the Steve Kern interview. 8, Jim Cornette, the most recent one. All the Cornette ones are good. 9, Rico Constantino, which is a surprise because we just had him on the other day, and I thought he did very well, but I mean, it was like this day where there was so much news that we didn't really get to talk to him as much as we normally do to a guest. But he was good. Number 10, Missy Hyatt. I'm going to quickly go through our weekend poll, which was, how would you react to the news that WWF has purchased WCW? It's good news for fans and wrestlers, 16%. Good news for fans, bad for wrestlers, 35%. Now, I'll tell you what. Now, the good news for wrestlers, there's no way. You can make an argument it's good news for fans. There's no way this is good news for wrestlers, okay? Bad news for fans and wrestlers, 12%. Some short-term good but bad long-term for everyone, 36%. Bad short-term but good long-term, 1%. Today's question, which is a similar topic, how long do you think WCW would be kept as a separate entity before being absorbed into the WWF? A, less than 3 months. B, 3 to 6 months. C, 6 months to a year. D, 1 to 2 years. And E, more than 2 years.
As far as bad news for the wrestlers, I mean, financially, obviously it is, but I think there's some guys that are going to be happy that at least now they're going to get a chance in a company that has a clue.
Yeah, but there's not going to be there's going to be a lot of guys that are out of work.
Yeah.
And it's going to be bad financially. You're right, though. There are guys who are...
I mean, in general, it's bad, but for some guys, I'm sure that this is the happiest day of their lives.
Yeah, there will be some guys who benefit from this. You're right. Hopefully. Unless it's just gutted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in a year.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, maybe like they'll keep 5 to 8 guys. I don't know. I'm so negative about this because I've seen this in not just wrestling, but in other forms of sports entertainment when something like this has happened, and it's happened many, many times. In the long run, it's never been good. Whether it was what happened when roller derby folded in roller games, which was a total disaster and killed everything within about a year after it happened, or with just is the most recent pro wrestling thing with the Mid-South, when Jim Crockett took over Florida, he took over Central States, he took over Mid-South, and in every case, they never did anything interpromotional, and they ended up not using allowing any of the outside talent to get over because it would threaten the guys, or they were still fighting a fight that they'd already won. Like there was always that rivalry of which group, with Jim Crockett and Bill Watts when they were running at the same time, which group was really the good wrestling group, because WWF was obviously more the entertainment-oriented group. And there's a lot of things. So when Bill Watts sold to Jim Crockett, it was all those guys that were fighting, and the first thing that they did on mixed shows was put all the UWF guys in the middle and low part of the card, and all the NWA guys in the top of the card, and they put Jim Crockett guys ended up winning all the UWF titles right away, which basically killed those titles as being competitive titles. I mean, they had Big Bubba Rogers, who was a mid-card mid-card gimmick guy for Jim Crockett go over and win the UWF World title right away. I mean, that was totally done wrong. When they finally did, they were going to do the beginning of unification matches. The first one was Nikita Koloff and Terry Taylor for, I think they unified the 2 TV titles, as I recall. Or there were 2, I think that's what it was, actually, at a Starrcade. And it was like this squash match, where Terry Taylor got no offense, and Nikita just killed him. And it was like, well, that's just a great way to start a promotion feud. And then they never even bothered with the other belts. And as I recall, Steve Williams ended up selling that UWF belt so he could get, like 50-yard line tickets to a football game or something. That's how much it meant to him by the time it was all over. So anyway, I wonder who's got that belt now. This is a question. What was the biggest wrestling news story of the last 25 years? This is 15 different ones. Number 1, WWF buys WCW, which is certainly one of them. WCW starts Nitro was a big one. Vince screws Bret Hart. That'd be in the 15. Vince declares war on the territories. That may be number 1 or 2. I think this one and that one are probably the 2 biggest. Vince McMahon steroid trial, very high. All Japan split, very high. NWO, WCW feud. Not as high as the other ones we mentioned. Akira Maeda starts UWF. I think long-term that one's pretty damn high, just because of how much it changed the entire industry. 9, Rise of AAA, which would be probably the biggest one in Mexico, because it changed Mexico huge. Number 10, Riki Choshu attacks Inoki. That was 1982. Well, yeah, because it did change the structure of the main events in Japan from Americans versus Japanese to Japanese versus Japanese at the big box office. And it really did it was the beginning of the idea when Americans became far less important to the Japanese wrestling. That's a big one. 11, Hogan jumps to WCW. I think Hogan jumping to WWF was bigger than Hogan jumping to WCW, actually. But they were both big. Number 12, Ted Turner buys NWA, or Jim Crockett Promotions, and that was huge. 13, Jim Crockett buys UWF. As we just talked about, that could have been huge, but I don't think it really was. 14, death of Owen Hart. 15, death of Bruiser Brody. Those are some of them right there. It's from Chris Russell, who goes, I'm from Coleman, Alabama. I was listening to a Christian radio station this morning in Birmingham. They said they were going to have Tim Berryman, the Birmingham Thunderbolts general manager, on. He was trying to target the Christian community to raise the ratings and get families to come out to XFL games, and said they were going to change their product to a family-friendly product instead of the adult-style product they have now. Boy, they're desperate, huh?
Look at all these changes, like in the first season. That's what's so funny.
Yeah.
It's like every week. Well, this week let's try family entertainment. Next week we'll try Camera in the Locker Room. Of course,
Derek this is going to... this is from Derek Sands, who goes, I have a couple questions. Does Antonio Inoki own Pride? He does not own Pride, but he's the, I guess he would be like the booker or one of the main bookers. Probably the main booker. Why do you consider Pride pro wrestling? Because Antonio Inoki's the booker, and because its audience is entirely pro wrestling fans, and because it's the number 1 pro wrestling promotion right now in Japan. Finally, to give the WCW World title credibility, they should send a former WWF champion that's never competed in WCW like Kurt Angle, win the belt, lose to Goldberg. I don't think Bill Goldberg is going to be part of this, although it's possible that he will be. I don't think he will be. I've noticed a lot of the sheets on the net have been saying TNN's given WWF a time slot 8 to 10 on Friday. Well, we already know the story on that. That's not true. With the sale of WCW to WWF, the question that really is on everyone's mind is, whatever happened? What will happen to Bob Ryder? I have no idea. No idea. What's the story with Shane Douglas? Do you leave WWF on good terms and will be one of the guys who will have their contracts restructured? I think Shane Douglas
I wouldn't hold your breath
in a lot of trouble. I think he's in a lot of trouble. Let's see. This is from Hector Velez, who goes, I checked out the Matt Rats video on their site. I really like the match highlights. Totally hated the teeny bopper crap, but I'm really interested. Give me more information on Matt Rats, who formed it, and when they're going to have a TV deal. I don't know when they're going to have a TV deal. The moves in the matches are phenomenal. They really caught my interest. It's, as I said when we were talking about this the other day, it's not something that's going to appeal to a lot of wrestling fans because it's totally aimed at teenage girls. So that's going to hurt a lot as far as like to mainstream pro wrestling fans. As far as TV, do you know who formed it in the TV deal or anything? Because I know you know some people in it.
No, I don't know who. I know Teddy Hart's involved, and I actually don't even know the name of the other guy, but they're pretty much the main guys. If I can find that letter, I'll let you know the guy's name.
Do you think WWF will book some of their top stars to wrestle dark matches at WCW tapings that may draw more fans? They won't have to tape TV in empty arenas. Interesting. You know, the idea that they send like Steve Austin or somebody like that or Kurt Angle to work the main events when they finally do tapings. It's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. I don't know. I don't think they're going to do it though, but they may. I was wondering where I could get a copy of the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view.
I'm sure those are all over.
Yeah, I think you could probably get it pretty easily. Yeah, I need to see Jacob's name.
Dude, that's far from the only thing you need to see on that show. You need to watch the whole show.
This goes from Sean. Goes, I will lose all respect for Scott Steiner if he doesn't do what's right for the business tonight. I think he will. Because he has to, or else he will never be working in the main events in a mainstream promotion for a long, long time. The first day of trading after they announced they bought WCW, WF stock rose $1.50. I heard that. Yeah. In Winnipeg, Cyrus hosts a weekly radio show. Yesterday he revealed he had a deal with an announcer in the Fusion-run WCW. That's nice to reveal it. He said he no longer had the deal. I guess Bischoff was going to make a good decision and hire Cyrus. You know what? I can tell you something. Bischoff was going to make a lot of good decisions. I don't know that overall he would turn it around or anything, but he had a lot of good decisions that he was hiding. Let's see, from Todd Ferretti, as far as equipment purchased in the WCW sale, what did the WWF buy? That's a good question. I don't know. Are they going to use WF rings or WCW rings or WF ones? Did WWF keep any of its referees, or will Earl Hebner? I think they'll probably keep the refs. Do not know. Let's see. This one, Jeremy goes, for the first time in a long time, I'm actually very excited about the two shows tonight. I just hope it does not get added to the list of letdowns we've grown accustomed to. Hey, it may be great tonight, but it's over tonight too.
Yeah.
It
was over last Monday, actually.
Well, it was over when the
the transition's already gone through.
Yeah. Do you think the rumors of Jerry Jarrett and Burt Prentice starting a new national promotion are true? Well, they're true as far as they're talking about it. Personally, I think it would be the greatest thing for the wrestling business because these are two of the greatest minds that ever came along.
Yeah, but where are they going to put their show? How are they going to do a national promotion without a show? I mean, there's just, there's so many facts we talked about a million times. Great, they can talk and say, we're going to put this promotion together, they can come up with some money and get some guys, but then what?
Yeah, no, hey, there's plenty of big-name guys that are going to be available. More than have been available on the independent scene or by a third promotion, or by a new promotion, I should say, to start out within a long, long time. But it's like, where's going to be the exposure? And also, the other thing is even if you can get the exposure, the amount of money it costs now for production, because if you don't have good production, you can't compete. And that's where WCW lost all that money, was trying to, do the promotion, do like major league production while not having major league revenue coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and if somebody else, whether it's Jerry Jarrett or anyone, if they don't want to do major league production, they're not going to get anywhere. And if they do, they better have major league revenue coming in, and that ain't going to happen right away. Let's see, I think the WWF and WCW could do a World Cup of Wrestling like New Japan and WCW did at Starrcade when they merged the two together, maybe a big show like a WrestleMania or SummerSlam. WWF has no interest in anything with Japan right now. What's the status of Super Crazy? It's up in the air. I don't know. Do you know if Jason Jett and Kid Romeo are in a spot in WCW? I am relatively sure that both guys will be offered a low contract. Let's see. Let's see. How much stroke does Paul Heyman have in the WF storylines? Decent
input.
amount. Yeah, he's got decent input. Yeah. WWF needs to put Rob Van Dam on WCW TV. Well, wouldn't hurt. But there's the same reasons why they didn't hire him before, are the same reasons. There's nothing's changed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Putting aside all the cross-promotion ideas for a minute, I'd like your opinion on tonight's scheduled main event for Raw. Putting Rock and Austin together as a team in order to have something to happen to create more tension between them is a no-brainer, but why are they booking them against another face team? I didn't even know that.
What is the main event?
I don't know. I was wondering if the bookers wanted to put them against Angle and Benoit and then realize they can't let them beat Rock 2-on-1. If they can't beat Rock 2-on-1, what chance do they have against both of them as a team, even if one leaves the other hanging? I don't see this event generating that much crowd response, and without Benoit or Angle to carry the match, who would want it? Furthermore, it doesn't seem to do anything to help Helmsley and Undertaker build up. Maybe it's all a swerve and we'll be getting something different. I don't even know what the card is. Let's see. When can I get Bischoff on the show? We'll ask. I don't know. Is there any chance we'll be stuck hearing Tony Schiavone? Losing him is the best thing about the collapse of WCW. I think there's a good chance he will not be there.
One thing I was thinking about today, though, is I think that at the very least he should be given a chance. I mean, part of me thinks he shouldn't because he's the face of the old WCW that everybody hated. But, I mean, we were talking about it before, like back during the hot period, he wasn't an embarrassment.
Oh,
he
no,
had
he's
something
very
to
good.
call that was entertaining for him, and he did, a decent job.
Let's see. What's up with the WCW production crew? They can't keep any of these unprofessional people. Why do I have to contact who do I have to contact for a new production job? WWF. Let's see. I've heard that Sting is on the list of people the WWF does not want. Sting being a problem is news to me. Can you expand on this a little more? It's not necessarily, it is a problem, but it's just a financial thing. There are certain guys, Kevin Nash, Sting, Goldberg, that it's just not going to happen unless I'd be very, very surprised. Financially, the way everything would have to work out, they would cost themselves huge amounts of money to work. So, and rather than sit at home and not work and make tons more. And I'm sorry, but I don't care what age you are. And Sting's 42, Nash is 42. Goldberg's a little bit younger than them. But at that age, if you got, like in the case of Nash is at $1.6 million a year to sit at home and do nothing, or he can get a small settlement and take a giant pay cut and then work, and then work for WWF if they would take him, which they probably won't anyway. And in the case of Sting, it's the same thing. It's like, like Sting's contract, I think it's somewhere between 1.6 and 2 million a year. WWF's not going to offer him more than probably $400,000. He could, why go?
You really got to look at it from Sting's standpoint too. There was that year where he worked one match,
Yeah.
One match, and now,
he got lazy.
What's he been doing
He's never
this
been
past
good since
year?
then.
Nothing.
He's never been, yeah. Let's see. You said the new time slot for WCW is Saturdays, 11 p.m. When will this move take place? This Saturday after that, a month from now? Nobody knows. If they don't announce anything tonight, that means that there's no final decision made. It'll be as soon as they can get up there. They want it up quick, though. Mike in Minnesota, you're first up.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Doing really good.
I was just wondering about Lance Storm. You think he'll benefit from this?
He was on the list.
Benefits. If the show is a success, he'll benefit. If the show is not a success, the jury's out. So
Any chance of Jericho joining Team Canada?
Chris Jericho joining Team Canada. I get there's a chance. I don't expect it. Benoit would. Again, there's a chance. I wouldn't expect it because to go over there, that would mean that they would no longer be doing house shows, and I just don't see the WWF taking Benoit and Jericho off house shows right now.
What about Storm going over there?
I think if the thing gets gutted, he will end up there. Until then, probably not right away.
And do you think some of the WCW guys will be asked to change their finishers, like Booker T and Kidman?
Yes, probably, almost for sure.
Kidman.
Yeah, the same as Christian.
Yep,
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And tonight's main event for Raw is it's against Undertaker and Kane.
Oh, Undertaker and Kane against Rock and Austin?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
There goes that string of good main events we were talking about.
And
they'll shoot. Obviously, they got to shoot a huge angle.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. In that sense. But yeah, you're right. It may not be at the level of all the main events we've been seeing of late.
Yeah, it should still be good though.
Well, the angle will be good. I don't know, but
if they do the new WCW show and it gets hot, they could tour.
Yeah, of course. But until then.
Yeah.
That's and they will tour if it gets hot.
Do you think any of the younger guys in WCW do house shows for WWF just to get some ring time, or?
Not at the beginning, no. At some point, it's a possibility. What I would do is I would send those guys to Memphis and just have them do the TV, do them the TV tapings every week, and send them to Memphis or Ohio Valley, maybe even more likely Ohio Valley, so they get like 4 nights a week of wrestling, which they need. And actually, as far as that idea has been discussed. I know that, so it's a possibility.
And are the rumors about the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian being there tonight? Is that true or what?
No, they were down there. I can't say for sure because I don't know exactly who's going to be there and who's not. But those guys were down there for public appearances that had nothing to do with Nitro. They were all down there. But I'm of the impression they're going to be in Cleveland tonight. Again, I don't know that for sure though.
One final question.
Another idea is to take like some of the guys that are really banged up, send them to WCW, let them have the couple months off or whatever until they start touring, and just do the TV.
That's not a bad idea.
Party's got to need a break.
That's a good idea. That's a real good idea to send the Hardy Boys down there just so they can, like, they only have to work 1 day a week and they can rest up. The problem is, though, is that all these guys are not going to be happy if you do that because all of a sudden their pay is going to go way down because they're only working 1 day a week instead of 4 days a week. And they're going to want the money when business is hot. You know what I mean? Because we all know business isn't going to stay at this level forever. And you know, everyone in wrestling wants to be out there on the road right now, especially in WWF, where your pay is determined by business, that when you're still drawing sellouts, you want to be out there because, you know, I mean, the bumps hurt just as much to an empty house, if you know what I mean, but the pay's not as good.
I'm sure they could cut some sort of deal where they go, look, we'll pay you for this many house shows a week just for the time being till we start touring with this company, and, you know.
There's ways they could do it.
They're going to have to do
it's just a question, will they?
WWF
can do anything they want. It's just a question, will they do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, of course they could. Anything else?
What's going to happen with the power plant?
Yeah.
I would presume it'll be shut. You know, I pretty strongly presume.
Maybe everyone will show up tomorrow and they'll be having the meeting outside.
Yeah, that's right, because they get the big meeting at the power plant.
So Paul Ardorf and all them are out of jobs, or?
So, I mean, WWF may take some of them. But,
as far as trainers at the power plant, they're out of jobs. But
yeah, but they may not. They may take, as far as for the power plant guys, yeah, I don't know their odds are that good of being hired as trainers, because WWF already has their own trainers.
Think Hacksaw will be in the Battle Royal?
Duggan?
Yeah.
If they ask him, I'm sure he will. If they don't ask him, it's up to WWF bookers. I don't know.
Okay, well, thanks.
Okay, very welcome. Let's go to Al in St. Louis. Al, what's going on?
Hi, Brian and Dave.
Hey.
I have a question. Is the WWF deal to buy WCW, is it like 100% final?
No, it is not 100% final, but I don't expect it to fall apart because there's nobody else to sell to.
Okay.
So, you know, it will probably be final by the end of the week, as far as final. But they've signed, you know, it's basically as final as the Fusion deal was to buy WCW in January, which has turned out never happened.
Okay. Okay, and one more, and another thing. So what's gonna happen to like the non-wrestling staff in WCW, like the executives and the people who run the website?
I
don't think anyone knows the answer to that right now. That's all up to WWF.
They're going to keep some of the office crew just to take some of the strain off their own office crew. I mean, people that can do jobs and aren't, you know, they're obviously not going to take someone that is going to do like what Jim Ross is doing because he's going to be in charge of that. But someone who maybe, I don't know, maybe like someone who's booking the arenas, they'll keep them or something.
I think they're going to book their own arenas.
Really?
Yeah, I am pretty sure of that one. Yeah, they'll book their own arenas. Because you got to remember, the people who are booking the arenas, they booked the arenas during a time period where they were running 6 nights a week with 3 shows a night. So now running 4 nights a week, the idea of like having to give them an extra night, you know what I mean?
Okay.
That crew has booked 1,000 shows a year. Now they're booking 200. So, and it's the same crew. So the idea of like if it increases from 200 to say 300 shows, they're not going to hire like the people from WCW to do that.
Okay. And so is the plan right now to have like the WCW up like on Saturday nights on TNN?
That's the plan as of right now, yeah.
Okay. And another thing, Missy Hyde mentioned a website called ringrats.com. What is the website? Do you know what the address is?
Brian might, I don't know.
What is
Ringrats.
There's a dash after the ring, though. Ring-rats.com.
Ring-rats.com. Okay. And another question, one last question. Are all the WWF pay-per-views this year still set? You know, are they all still set?
The WCW?
WWF dates?
I'm sorry, I mean the WWF pay-per-views.
WWF pay-per-views are all going to be the same, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, very welcome. Let's go to Jonathan in New York. Jonathan, what's going on?
Yes, how are you doing, Dave?
Doing really good.
First off, I want to know, now that Vince McMahon has become the Julius Caesar of wrestling, what does Eric Bischoff have to say about all this?
As far as, I think he's very, very disappointed.
I mean, what is he doing now?
I don't know what he's doing now. Probably trying to sell non-wrestling television shows like he did with that, what was that thing called with the cars? I forget. I'm sure he's going to try to come up with...
Right.
I don't even remember the name of it anymore. Something on wheels. I don't know.
Okay.
But no, I think he'll probably try to do something in the television industry, I'm guessing.
Right. And now that the WWF purchase of WCW is not final, you said, right?
It's not 100% final, but this one's really not going to fall apart, though, because there's no way it can. I guess is the best way of putting it.
So does that leave like an open slot for like the lower companies such as XPW or UPW or anything like that to make it, boom?
I mean, it would leave some talent for those guys to get if those pieces of talent are willing to work cheap enough to fit into those companies' budgets. I mean, like, I'll just give you an example for UPW, okay?
Right.
UPW only runs one show a month in the Galaxy Theater. It holds about 700-plus people, and they're going to draw 700 people. They fill it every single month. So, yeah, they could add 10 great guys, Jerry Lawler and Buff Bagwell and Luger and Steiner Brothers and all this. But they're, all it's going to do is cost them money because it's not going to make them an extra dime. So, so it's like, economically, yeah, you can do it. Yeah, there's more guys out there. If it's done right and the guys are willing to work within the independent framework of money, it can help the independents. It can. This can help it a little bit.
I don't really know how much help it's going to be, though, because if you look back, like, a few weeks ago, we were talking about all the ECW guys that went off and were doing independents, and it wasn't like they were doing shows that all of a sudden were doing 3,000 people. They were working shows with 150 people, just like any other.
No, that's right. They haven't made any difference, really, at all. The only independent shows... the only show, I shouldn't say independent, but the only shows in this country that are really drawing over 1,000 people were the last 2 weeks. AAA did one, and the Lucha shows, and the Ultimate Fight shows. I mean, the independent wrestling, very rarely draws 1,000 people now. So it's
you're not going to get
really...
a big star like Lex Luger or Kevin Nash to come in for $500. They're going to want just a ton of money. And the guys that are going to come in for $500 aren't going to mean probably $500 worth of tickets.
Well, then, what happened to Vince Russo? Whatever happened to that guy?
He's still alive, and he's just collecting his money from WCW.
Oh man! And apparently, does ECW still exist?
The letters still exist. I think Vince McMahon owns the letters now. I'm pretty sure he does.
Okay.
So it is, I think they've got the rights to it.
Okay, and one last question. What the heck is McMahon doing with Taz, man? Why the hell is he just, like, sitting around? I mean, isn't he, fit to get his push like Raven did?
Raven hasn't gotten that big of a push either. It's real tough. It's a competitive situation, and I think Taz is actually doing pretty well for himself. If he was wrestling, he'd be dead by now. The fact that he's doing
the human suplex machine in ECW, he was feared, man. Come on,
Wait a second now.
He was feared because Paulie was a great booker, but when you got a guy who's 5'6", in WWF with all those huge guys, the whole size thing just changed the whole dynamic.
Well, speaking of huge, I was thinking he'd go against the Big Show and just have like a David and Goliath thing, and he just beat
and choke him out.
Yeah, he just beat the crap out of the Big Show. That would have been real great,
Well, it would be great if you could convince Vince McMahon to do it, but that's not Vince McMahon's mentality. I mean, we're still trying to convince him to let Benoit beat the Big Show, and that hasn't happened yet either.
Hey, why was the XFL rating down this week?
Yeah, there you go. The XFL sucks. It's basically based on those cheerleaders of Vince McMahon's. It's massive. I don't know. It's just no liking to it. I'll stick with the NFL.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Oh, and I'm real sorry about the WCW purchase thing. I hope Bischoff has something else planned or whatever.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, guys. Nice speaking with you.
This guy asked every question we've been ranting about on the website.
Let's go to Arthur. Arthur, what's up?
Hey, Dave. First off, I have a question about WCW, but before I get to that, I was just wondering, I just spent a half hour on mixed martial arts when today's like the biggest story in pro wrestling.
Because there were over 20,000 people, and it was the biggest wrestling show of the last 3 months in Japan. And we do cover Japan on the show.
Yeah, but I mean, like, everyone wanted to know what was going on with WCW.
Well, and that's what we're talking about, too. But there was a huge show on Sunday night.
Tomorrow will be the day.
Okay, and I was just wondering another thing. Why do you always go to emails before the callers?
That's just tradition.
Tradition? Okay, like the NWA?
It's got nothing to do with the NWA. It's just the first segment of the show, we talk about the news. The second segment, we usually do emails. We got a little bit behind on this one. We change it around a little bit, and that's just the way we do it.
Okay, and then my question is, do you think Jerry Lawler will end up as the announcer for WCW?
If he's willing to come in without his wife, he's got a good shot at it. If he's not willing to come in without his wife, then he's got no shot at it. I think it's the same. It's the same situation it was a week ago.
Right. And do you think Kat's going to become like a stripper or something?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know what she's going to do.
I mean,
Cat's going to stay in wrestling and work Memphis every Saturday morning. I'm sure that's what she'll do. Anything else?
He's gone.
He's gone. Let's go to Mark. Mark, what's up?
Mark.
Hello?
Mark in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I have a question for you. Whatever happened to Jerry the King Lawler?
Jerry Lawler quit WWF a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah?
Because they fired his wife.
Who's his wife?
Kat.
Oh, word.
Right.
I have one more question for you. What's this whole thing with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon? And they supposed to be joining up together now?
Good shot. Good shot of it, yeah.
Okay, that's all I had, man. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Let's look at some of this. This is from Ben Smith, who goes, the only positive long-run result of WWF buying WCW is hopefully guys like Nash, Bagwell, Luger, and the Steiners won't work in a big promotion again. Now, somebody will start something, and they will. See, will Sting and Goldberg be on Nitro tonight? As far as I know, no. Does Sting have any interest in joining WCW? Whether he does or he doesn't, I think financially it doesn't make any sense for him to do so.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do you think any of the following people have a chance to make it in WCW? Jason Jett?
Yep.
Good shot. Good shot. Dave Cash? Shot. Lenny Lane? Maybe no. Juventud Guerrera? Not right now. Sabu? Not for a long time, if ever. Let's see. This is from Jack, who goes, am I the only person who thinks this change should be welcomed? Wrestling has been stale for a while now. This is what everyone always wrote fantasy columns about, and finally it has come true. Your fantasy may be better than the reality on this one. Maybe not. We'll see. With Vince McMahon behind the wheel of the new operation, don't you think it will eventually lead to exciting sports entertainment? I think that it will probably do that. I just think that, it's just such a tough time for the wrestlers. And this is from Duncan, who goes, in his conference call, Triple H talked about Ric Flair being his hero, and talked about in his match at No Way Out, he did the Ric Flair flop, figure four. Actually, he didn't do the Ric Flair flop. He did the Harley Race thing, which he does in a lot of his big matches. Figure four leg lock, which, in fact, Helmsley does a lot in his matches. A lot of people talk about Triple H as the new Ric Flair because he draws big heat. He can work different styles. Cuts a good promo, can carry anyone to a 3-star match, politically smart. So now that WWF owns WCW, are they going to job Flair to Helmsley to help cement that image? Who knows? I mean, it's possible. I mean, Flair would have to come, which I know that they want Flair, so I think that would probably end up happening. Mm-hmm. As far as Flair coming in, working with Helmsley, if Helmsley wants to do it, I'm sure Flair would love the opportunity. If
Helmsley wants to do it, I think he'd die for it.
Well, then there's a good shot it'll happen. We're still getting tons of emails. This is like record-setting pace. It's from Ryan, who goes, is Shawn Michaels still supposed to be on Raw tonight? The last I heard, which was, what would this have been? Saturday night, Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley were still scheduled. I've talked to people, but I haven't asked anyone since then. Let's see. Will all the faces
Hey, Michael, send him over.
That's not the worst idea.
Not to be doing house shows? Just be on TV?
Not doing house shows. Just come at TV, work maybe once a month, but do interviews the other 3 weeks.
Big name?
Yep. That's a good idea. It says, Pro Wrestling Torch reported that Shane McMahon is in Panama City. Oh, he absolutely is. I can tell you that. The website also reports there will be a live feed from Nitro on Raw. Their sources are very good. Let's see. Would not the move of a WWF wrestler to WCW affect their financial situation? Yes, it would. For example, if they sent Triple H to WCW, he would not be on house shows on Raw or SmackDown, and he would not receive money for doing house shows and would basically be working 4 to 5 days a month instead of 15 days a month. And do you know if they would use WCW rings instead of WWF rings? I don't know what they're going to do about the rings. The whole deal is, if they were to do that and send a guy over, they're going to have to restructure their contracts to make it worthwhile, or else it's unfair to the guys. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, since they own both companies, there's no reason they cannot restructure the contract to do that. Let's see. Your panel was wrong about Shane McMahon. He has nothing to prove. He has taken more bumps than the majority of WCW talent. He hasn't taken more. He hasn't taken more. He hasn't taken more than almost any WCW talent. He's taken some big bumps, that's for sure. He has experienced the business from the ground up, and you would think that some of Vince would rub off. But he has not proven anything as a promoter on his own. And this won't be him proving anything in reality as a promoter on his own, because it's Titan Sports. It's not Shane McMahon. But from a public standpoint, that's what this is all. That's part of what this is all about. Did WWF pick up the contracts of Mike Modest and Christopher Daniels? No. I don't think they had contracts. They were going to be signed after Bischoff got the company. Mm-hmm. Chris from Thompson, Manitoba goes, when you ask the poll whether it's good for wrestlers, it should be divided into 3 categories. Good for main eventers, which it is. Actually, it's bad for the main eventers.
It's bad for the main eventers.
Good for mid-carders, good for mid-carders, which it can be. It can be very good for the mid-carders if they get a chance and make it. There's some guys, and there are going to be some guys who are going to come out real good with this that were held back. Good for the curtain jerkers, which it won't be. Actually, it's probably going to be the same for those of them that stay. Because they weren't going to get a big push in WCW anyway.
No.
I was looking at the active WWF roster, not including the females. It's got 52 active male wrestlers on their roster. If you count the women, developmental WCW guys, you go over 100, which has to be one of the largest rosters ever. Yeah, WCW had a huge roster a couple of years ago. Weren't they up to like 150 at one point?
They were at I think it was some huge number.
You know, when they were just like making money like crazy and they just signed everyone they could?
Hired everybody.
This is from Jeff from California. How can any of the WCW wrestlers under contract like Sting, Nash, and Goldberg refuse to appear on Nitro Night if asked? Isn't that a violation of their guaranteed contracts? How can they say no and still get a paycheck? I have wondered that one myself, and I don't know the answer, but I think that because they were asked by Eric Bischoff, who is no longer in control of the show tonight, that they're not saying no to anyone from Time Warner. You know what I mean? To a superior.
I just kind of figured it was like, even if Vince McMahon told them to show up and they didn't, it's not like he can terminate someone who's under a Time Warner contract.
Exactly. Unless someone from Time Warner told them that they had to come, in which case, which hasn't happened.
But why would they do that? Why does Time Warner care anymore?
Yeah. Let's see. Explain why the WWF would book Austin Rock against Undertaker and Kane. We'll find out tonight. I'm sure they have a good idea. They're all faces. How does the crowd know who to cheer for?
They will cheer for Steve Austin.
They're going to cheer for who they want to cheer for, and they're going to cheer for him loud. They may cheer for all of them. The only sense the match can make is if Vince ordered it to happen. I'm kind of tired of that being the only reason why a main event happens. Let's see. I think that WWF buying WCW and running it separate is better than the alternative of dead WCW. It is better than that alternative. That's true. If the WWF order will allow WCW to die instead of buying them, it actually would have been the same exact thing. They would still pick up the ones who they want to at a low price. I mean, that would actually make no difference one way or the other.
It would make no difference for the wrestlers as far as for the fans.
It would give them a chance to see...
If they didn't have the WCW trademark and everything like that and have the desire to keep it alive.
Yeah. This is from George, who goes, I watched The Last Thunder on Wednesday, and I just was about to change the channel on the Dustin Rhodes segment. Ric Flair appeared and started to cut his promo. During the promo, the Nature Boy set fire to what was a trash segment. Also electrified the crowd, which wasn't close to capacity.
I don't know if he electrified the crowd.
My point is, all the Mark fans in me from the last Wednesday until whenever it happens cannot wait for Rick to walk down the ramp on Raw and pop a capacity crowd. Which brings me to my question, will any WCW wrestlers appear on Raw? I think eventually they're going to have to. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Just to build up Raw, just to shoot angles, to tell people to watch on Saturday nights when the thing starts. Let's start with Alan in Florida. Alan, what's up?
Doing today?
Hey.
Hey, I had a few questions. You guys, about the roster with the WCW, how big do you think the roster should be? Evidently, we know they're not going to take all their, the talent. I mean, are they going to get most of the other talent, I guess, from their development territories and stuff like that? Or independent?
I think it depends.
I'm sure they'll bring in some ECW guys. They may bring in a few of their developmental guys like Steve Bradley or Scott Vick that they've been wanting to bring to the main show, but just haven't had a slot open for them.
They're not going to bring up any guys that aren't ready.
No, it'd be stupid to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they will do that.
How big do you think their roster should be? I mean, it's not. I mean, how many?
You got to do 2 hours of TV. 2 hours of TV every week. Yeah, maybe 35 guys.
That should be decent enough. How about tag teams, though? Is there enough tag teams even on their roster?
Well, they can get as many as they want. Whatever they want, they're going to hire anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a number. It's like whoever they want, they're going to hire. Whoever they don't want, they're not going to hire. And it's up to the people, the booking people, to figure out what they want and don't want, and who fits into their plans.
Now, do you think also McMahon might? Some of the wrestlers from WCW, like some of them might. How he's a genius for gimmicks and stuff. You don't think he's going to change some of their, give them characters? Some of them that
Oh, absolutely, he will. Absolutely.
Yeah. One more quick question. You guys, somebody was asking before about ECW. I heard something on the net. I don't know, on one of those news boards. It doesn't mean it's, accurate information or whatever. But that McMahon might, use that as a development group. How he has, the big two. He might buy them, I guess.
They could do that, but I don't think they will. And the reason I say that is that they've already got developmental things in Memphis, Puerto Rico, and Ohio Valley. They really don't need. They've got more guys in developmental than they'll ever know what to do with, so why add another developmental territory? There's just no purpose to it now. They still may do it. I'm just thinking, I'm looking at it from a logical standpoint. You don't need more than 3. And they got 3
they already
right
just got WCW. I don't know why they would want to have a third group owned by. I mean, we all know it would be run by them, but.
Yeah, they'll probably use the ECW name in some form or fashion in an angle, sooner than later. But I don't see them like running ECW shows, and certainly not ECW style shows. They may, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. All right, well, it was nice talking to you, and first time caller, and I like your show. It's pretty good, and I'll continue listening to it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's go to Andy in Long Island. Andy, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? Dave, I'm a first-time caller, but a long-time fan of the Wrestling Observer.
Thank you.
You are definitely a genius in this business, and you have a big part no matter what anybody says.
Oh, thanks.
No, I'm very sincere when I say that. Anyhow, just a little note. I don't know if you heard Sandman jobbed out to 2 New Jersey indie workers this past week, and he put over Jerry DeBall and Homicide for Jersey All-Pro.
Uh-huh.
Actually, put Homicide over in the ECW arena. I know it doesn't mean a lot, but I guess 3 or 4 months ago that would have been a huge story.
Yeah, Sandman losing at the ECW arena to the I heard about that, yeah.
Also, it's a shame that NWA doesn't have their, you-know-what together, because this would be a perfect time if they had some money behind them and something going on for them to really build things up and become a major force in this business.
It would be the perfect time for anyone with a lot of money who could secure television. It is the perfect time for anyone like that. The problem is the money in the television.
TV.
Yeah.
It's just terrible for guys like Mike Rapata, because Mike Rapata is a world champion, but he has nowhere to show himself off anymore.
The thing is, if they actually had talent, then Mike Rapata wouldn't be the world champion. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
I know. I kind of said that tongue in cheek. I don't know if you caught any Apprentice's shows lately. It's pretty bad. I mean, he's got like Tony Falk doing his gimmick. Have you heard this yet? 2 Falk for sure. He's doing like a white guy acting like Tupac.
Yeah, I saw that when he did that gimmick in Memphis like about a year ago.
Oh my God, it's awful. And what's the story of the New South gimmick, by the way?
The New South, it's like it's like 2 guys. It's an Australian guy and a African American guy who are kind of pretending to be like good old boy Confederate rebels.
What was the origin of it? Do you know?
I think just that idea that the South will rise again, and all the rednecks in that area are like wave the Confederate flag. That's always been kind of a thing, like Southern boys and all that. And to have like an African American and an Australian do it, that's the heat behind it.
Because I really think that Corey Williams, it's another guy who's going to be hurt by this whole thing. Because I think it would a little feel like a coach like a Paul Heyman to help him out with his mic skills. He could be a major force in this business.
Really? I haven't seen enough of him.
I'm not crazy about Ashley Hudson, though.
Yeah. Ashley Hudson was with Daphne, and then that was another one of those angles. Ozzy, yeah.
The great Ozzy.
He went to Australia and never came back.
They went to Australia, and that was it.
And do you guys really think Jason Jett's going to get picked up? Because I think he's got a huge future.
I think strongly. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't, because he did real well on the last few weeks of TV, and I cannot imagine when they consult with various people, when WWF consults with various people, and they go through the list of people in WCW and ask, okay, what do you think of Jason Jett? I can't imagine anyone going like, I would be shocked if he's not picked up.
And you're pretty sure we're going to see Rey Mysterio?
Rey Mysterio, I am not sure of. They were very negative on Rey Mysterio, but I know some people went to bat for him, like Benoit and them at the Garden the other night to Stephanie McMahon. So I'm tending to think that they will pick up Rey Mysterio when all is said and done. I
think the negative Conan rub just really hurts him, and really I think he's a great worker and a great innovator, and he does have a place in this business.
But why? I don't understand why. You can't be judged by the fact, like, who your friends are. I mean, everyone in this world's got some pretty unsavory friends, except for Brian, but.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a terrible preconceived notion that they have about Ray, and I don't think it's true.
Yeah, I mean, like Hunter's friends with Nash. Does that mean they ought to fire him?
Yeah, just incredible for that matter.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to get going. Thanks for taking my call. This is Sweet Andy Rapata saying, woo!
Okay, cool. Let's go. Okay, I'm going to read this from Andy Patrizio, who's been trying to get in. He goes, as for WCW, perhaps the 11 to 1 hour will allow for more raunchy stuff, but that time slot just plain stinks. I hope they use WCW as the work rate federation with emphasis on light heavyweights. I think that they're going to do emphasis on light heavyweights just because that's the guys who they've got signed.
They're going to have light heavyweights.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's like something that McMahon would want to do, but I think that it's just going to end up that way. Okay. My idea for an angle with the group would be for them to resist the WWF domination and do some sort of a breakaway Declaration of Independence type angle. Imagine the fun Steve Regal could have with a rogue federation declaring its independence from King Vince. Actually, that sounds pretty funny.
It actually does.
It really does.
I don't know if anyone would take it seriously, though, just because of the way they look at Regal, but for us, it's pretty funny.
But just for fun.
Yeah.
You mentioned that a startup would have an impossible time due to the talent being locked up. But if someone comes along with deep pockets, the first thing they should do is challenge the legality of WWF contracts. If wrestlers are subcontractors, shouldn't they be legally allowed to subcontract elsewhere? Boy, this is something that's been around for about 10 years.
And don't hold your breath at this time of anything like that happening.
Yeah, if there's
who's the first guy that's going to go knock on Vince's door and go, Vince, I got something to talk to you about regarding my contract.
I'm an independent contractor, and I got an opportunity to work. You know, the only guy who ever got away with...
I got an opportunity to work the Wild Side show this weekend, Vince, if you if you don't want to negotiate.
You know, there's one guy who actually got away with it during the NWA WWF wars in the 80s. Roddy Piper still worked for Don Owen. It was I don't know how he ever did it, but he did. If there's legal, I don't know if it's against the law or how contracts are worded, but I do know the contracts are totally against the workers. God knows they are. So I'd love to know if this is a weakness for the WWF. As for another dead federation, I found it from a local exercise store where the WOW girls visit that they lost their advertisers over the pay-per-view.
Oh, come on now. How can that be?
Yeah, Selena Majors was not supposed to juice, but she did hit a gusher, and that scared off their advertisers. That combined with them not paying for television time anymore is probably why they're off the air here in L.A. I think it's not paying for the TV time especially. And they haven't run a show since. It's bad enough they screwed up their big chance in front of a huge live audience with bad booking, but the juice made it even worse. By the way, Roxy Powers is going to be in the new Spider-Man movie, which could be visually amusing, seeing Tobey Maguire, the star of the movie, who's built like Taka, standing next to a 6-foot woman built like China. Finally, you've talked about how out of favor wrestling is right now with cable. Why would a 5.0 rating on basic cable would it be out of favor? I don't know why, but it just is. He goes, I suspect the answer is Lionel Tate. His defense was totally wrong, but he used wrestling as an excuse. The media covered it big, and what he did to that girl in graphic detail, I think Tate soured a lot of people on pro wrestling, and totally wrongfully. You were right. That is one of the things that keeps getting brought up, and it is completely unfair. I, for one, am bummed about the failure of the XFL. I've come to enjoy the games now that the plays improved. The first month it stunk, no question. In hindsight, they should have gone on the air only in the 8 cities where they have teams for the first year to work out the bugs, then go national the second year. Vince does have an argument about media bias. The XFL has higher ratings in L.A. than the Lakers, and local media can't be bothered to do more than cursory coverage. The local NBC affiliate ran Vince's comments 2 weeks ago about how he feels play has improved and people should give it a second look. They ran it like an editorial with no commentary from the local sports anchor. Since when are the sports anchors without an opinion? It wouldn't have killed Carlos to say something along the lines that, yes, the play was shaky at first, but it has improved, but he couldn't be bothered. One thing I don't understand is why they don't move the Saturday show. When a primetime show is struggling, they move the time slot without hesitation. Here we have week after week of declining ratings, and it remains in primetime. Why don't they just move it to 5 Eastern and be done with it? Because I think they got other programming. That's why. Let's go to, is it Chris? Is Chris next up? Yes, Chris.
Hi. How's it going?
Hey, Chris, how are you doing?
Okay. I was curious, a couple of things. The Steiner thing that was up on his website, was that just, do you think there's any possibility that there's something to that wasn't just him being, not too bright and putting that up? Because, he mentions the NWO as if it's like an actual
That was put up by, it wasn't put up by Scott, it was put up by someone, like one of his web people.
The webmaster. But
I think that site is down today, so.
Yeah, they said something about they were going to close, but wouldn't anything they put up, since it's like representing him, especially something like that, wouldn't he sort of have to okay it or tell him, hey, put this up?
That I don't know. I don't know for sure. I was under the, I don't know. I think that it was something that they put up on their own, and it didn't have anything to do with him.
Nobody's going to be stupid enough to be unprofessional, shoot on somebody, or anything like that if they even remotely want to work for the WWF.
That's what I mean. But that's why I'm saying if these guys work for him, and you know what I mean, for them to be.
They should not
putting that up there. Exactly. That's what I mean. So either he knew about it and let them, because, would they be dumb enough of all people to piss off? Are they going to piss him off? You know what I mean? To put them
over the internet, people will say and do a lot of things.
That's true.
People piss a lot of people off on that without thinking of the long-term repercussions.
Yeah.
All Scott has to do is go tonight, be a professional, and say, dude, I didn't even know what that was up there. I didn't do it.
And then just do the job.
Didn't
as long as he does the job, as long as he does the job, everyone will be happy.
Yeah, because they said he was trying to get fans to I don't know if it was him or the website, but they were trying to get fans to write to the WWF, convince them to hire him because they're supposedly so sour on him.
Yep, that's right.
I heard something too. I don't know if this is true, or just some rumor that that Jason Jett and Sean O'Hare had some kind of a run-in backstage.
Yes, they did.
They did have that. Yeah, there was something about
him. They did have that. Yeah, a couple weeks ago. I think maybe 2 weeks ago.
I heard was he choked him out because that O'Hare choked Jett out or something because he was kind of walking around with a big head.
I mean, I don't know why he did it, but that was the end result I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, he did choke him out. Okay. Yeah. Also, too, the Battle Royal at WrestleMania, are they actually going to go through with that, or is that some kind of, or somewhere that might be like an April Fool's joke or something?
I think they'll go through with it.
It'll be an April Fool's joke, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But that's something that actually it's going to be done in just as an actual match, or just,
Yeah, hopefully it'll be kept short. I think it'll just be a lot of ring entrances, and then they'll just try to get the match over with as quick as they can.
You think it might work in Pete Rose being at the show or something? Maybe in the kimchi outfit or gobbledygook?
Yeah, everyone's saying
outfit.
Yeah, gobbledygook.
Yeah, everyone's expecting that, but they may do it.
Hardcore match.
What?
Maybe an attack Kane during the hardcore match, since it's it's a hardcore match.
Probably. It's
like
the thing with Pete Rose, everyone expects it'll be Pete Rose because he'll win this battle royal. But in order for that to happen, that means it actually has to go to a finish, which means guys like the Iron Sheik have to bump over the top rope. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think someone's going to run in and just end the thing and beat everyone up, and they can just roll out.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the WCW end, they have the deal with Michael Buffer? Does Vince have to honor that he has to?
No.
He doesn't?
No, he does not. No.
Okay, I was just curious.
That was not among the 16 contracts or 24 contracts that were bought.
Well, what I meant was,
we don't know about those other 9 names, though.
No, I think that I would have heard if Buffer was one of the names.
Okay.
The ones that they bought, this is the only part I don't understand. They bought them because they were the cheapest ones or good prices or whatever, but they're going to renegotiate those anyway and renegotiate the high ones. So why did it matter that they bought these cheap ones to you know what I mean? Why do they have
because the cheap ones, these guys don't have a chance to go anywhere. The other ones, the other ones that it's a lot more tricky. And I think that they want to put pressure on them to come in with a lower price, whereas the other guys, the cheap ones, they don't care if they come in with, they know that they don't got to come in with they don't have to give these guys a lower price to come in because they've already got a lower price starting out.
Right.
So just keep them. You know what I mean?
But I heard of the 24 that they're not all necessarily going to be kept. Is that true?
No, not. I would think that they all have a good shot, but if one of them screws up, no, of course they won't be kept.
Well, I meant not even for screwing up, just initially that it was just sort of a paper thing that they did, that they had to take a certain amount of contracts, do that just for...
No, they didn't have to take any contracts. They did that. They just looked at the contracts and go, okay, hey, this guy makes this. Hey, we don't mind that. This guy makes this. We don't mind that. This guy makes this. Screw that,
Right.
But I mean, if the guys if a guy was cheap and they didn't want him, they wouldn't have taken him. There's no point in buying a contract of a guy you don't want.
I'm surprised they took Stage X. Didn't he leave on bad terms with the tape recording of the wrestlers?
Yeah, but the whole thing.
It wasn't really so much bad terms as something that actually really might have been a misunderstanding.
And also, Stacey X's one of those guys. He's always going to get a shot.
Yeah, Billy Gunn kind of thing.
Yeah, the same. Yeah, they're going to give him a shot.
God, they could be a tag team now.
God,
Billy Gunn and
I'd rather them be a team than wrestle each other, though. Have an actual one-on-one match.
Chris, we got to get running, okay?
Okay.
And Brian, you want to guess how many emails we got today?
132.
273.
Oh my God.
Yep. I'm going to go to about 5 of them, then we're going to finish up with the phone calls. We've got a full bank of phone calls. We've had it since the start of the show. Who's going to call WrestleMania? Will it be Ross and Heyman? Yes, as of right now, it is Ross and Heyman. And will Pete Rose be there? For some reason, I assume that he will, but no one's actually told me that he will. It's from Ben Miller. It goes, Roddy Piper told me the show he did in Denver drew 2,500. Is that true? No, but it drew like 1,400 or 1,500. I had the number in the Observer a couple weeks ago, which was like the paid attendance. I think it was I'm guessing 1,450 range. The reason I ask is the comment that no indie promotions are drawing 1,000. Actually, even bringing in older stars. Well, Piper, of guys out there, Piper probably would draw more than most, just because he was really a huge name in his day. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, Piper did draw over 1,000. That's true. Will Doug Dillinger keep his job as head of security? I would guess not.
Why not? They got to have a head of security.
Yeah, I just guess not. I think they would maybe be looking for a younger guy. Let's see. If Time Warner wants to get out of the guaranteed contracts, couldn't they assign them to McMahon? McMahon doesn't want them. That's the problem. They could. I'm sure that they want him. They want badly to give them to McMahon, but he didn't want them. So that's the basic gist of it. Is it true that WCW moved TNN at 11 p.m.? Will that not affect Kill Wrestling as we know it? Wrestling as we know it is changing greatly. Kill is too strong of a word, but it's going to change. Let's see. Does the new ownership have any interest in DDP? They have interest in DDP, yes. Even if built up for 6 months to a year, do you see anyone other than Booker T who's more of a mid-carder and could be taken seriously as an interpromotional pay-per-view?
If built up for a year? What's his question? Is there anybody that could headline like an interpromotional pay-per-view?
Yeah, other than Booker T.
Depends on who they get. Look at all the guys that went from WCW to WWF and became huge. There were a lot of them.
You mean like Austin and people like Austin Helmsley?
I'm sure there's some guys over there that they could be something in a year.
Headline a pay-per-view? I mean, the guys that they're the most excited about are like Helms and Kidman, and I don't know that they'll ever be main eventers on a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it's built up for a year and they send someone from the WWF over right now, in a year there'll be a WCW guy ready to headline a pay-per-view.
Let's see. Let's go. We'll go to Ed in Texas. Ed, what's going on?
Dave, I want to ask, what's going to happen with WCW Worldwide?
I think it's got about a week or two to go, and then that'll be it. Originally, the show that was taped this week, which I think would air this coming Saturday, was originally supposed to be the last show, and I think that they actually called it like it was the last show, and then when it was over, they were going like, hey, let's do 2 more. So I think they may, either next week, within the next 3 weeks, it'll be over. But I'm not sure.
So the WWF, isn't going to be able to pick up their time slots on all the syndications?
I guess if they want to and they want to pay for them, they can, but I don't think that they're going to bother.
Don't count on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially a show like Worldwide that nobody really watches.
Okay. Well, also I wanted to ask, the guys who are on Luger and Buff and Steiner, did they show up today? Do you know?
If they're supposed to, I think if they're supposed to, that they're all there.
Okay.
I'm sure if they want Flair ain't gonna no-show. I mean, Luger, no, who is? I mean, it's like anyone who thinks they're on the bubble, they're not gonna no-show tonight.
Yeah,
There's
but
no
if we
way.
go agreed, you would think that anyone who thinks they're on the bubble isn't going to go into business for themselves. But
that was a very poor choice of things to do. And don't
look at Rick
think
Steiner last Monday.
That was a very poor choice of things to do. The only reason why that might not kill him is because the WWF probably doesn't have a big interest in Conan. Like if he had done that to like Chavo Guerrero or Shane Helms or Billy Kidman, he'd have no prayer. I think he probably still has no prayer.
It's an act of unprofessionalism,
No, it's totally unprofessional. Doesn't matter who you do.
If they want to clean up the locker room, they need to get rid of guys like that are going to go into business for themselves.
And they will. They will. That's the one thing. There may be guys that go into business for themselves on Nitro, but nobody will ever do it a second time. Anything else?
And also, I wanted to ask, what is the reality of the 24-hour wrestling channel? How could that really happen?
It could happen, but both Vince and Linda McMahon have said that they have no plans to do so anytime in the future, near future. But I mean, some 5 years down the line, if wrestling gets super popular, I don't. They got enough tape. It's a possibility, but it's not like in the imminent plans.
I think it's a good idea because, I would probably end up watching 2 to 3 hours every day of some of it, And I'm sure most fans would end up watching a couple hours at least a day.
You may be right, but at the same time,
programming.
It's cheap programming. But the negative is that when you can see so much of it every week, it may dilute the ratings for the shows that they really want you to see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of ways of looking at it. Too much product isn't necessarily good in the long run for the business.
But you also got to look at how some of those, those high-profile golf tournaments do, despite the fact that they have the Golf Channel.
True.
It'd be first run. The important shows would be first-run programming, and I think that those would always do okay, even if there were the classic wrestling channel.
Yeah, but we didn't have a 24-hour wrestling channel this last year. But one of the reasons that I think that these companies folded was because we had primetime wrestling every night of the week, and it ceased to become something special.
Yeah, but it was first run.
Yeah, I know, but it was too much.
Yeah.
So,
a classic wrestling channel, I'm just looking at it as, this would not be first run programming. It'd be just like, the classic movie network or classic anything network. That's not hurting like modern shows. First run programming.
You're right. The key really is that, and I don't have an answer, and no one really does until it's tried. You know, there's a theory that wrestling fans, that a very small percentage of wrestling fans are actually interested in old wrestling, and they're only interested in modern wrestling. And if it's out there, and that's the case, and they're not interested in history, like sports fans generally have more interest in you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In history of sports than wrestling fans. And if that's the case, then historical wrestling matches, you know, in a business that, except for people like us, really has no history, that may not have a great appeal.
But it's like something we've talked about before, that there's a reason that modern fans don't care about history. It's because they've been taught not to care about history. And if it's out there for them to watch, I mean, they may be huge for it.
And you know what? Again, you know what it is? It depends on how it's presented and how it's tied together.
Mm-hmm.
If it's tied together well, it's viable. I mean, it's viable. You know, they have it in Japan. So, you know, why couldn't they have it here? I think they may have one in Germany, too, but I'm not sure.
Okay, and one final question that I have is Hector Guerrero going to be doing the Googly Gooker at WrestleMania?
Possible. He was the original one. I don't know for sure, though. I got this feeling.
That's a big costume to fill. If they can't be there, they may not have the gobbledygook.
All right.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks a lot.
Okay, very welcome, Ed. Let's go to Alex in Ottawa. Alex.
How you doing?
Hey,
we're doing pretty good.
I got a little bit of a comment here. Jason Jett, I think he's a great worker and all, but I don't know
his
if you guys
finisher's horrible.
Does that guy have not the worst tights in the world? Like his ring attire, does it not disgust you, or is it just me? Because not since Brutus the Barber Beefcake have I seen anything that ugly.
It's like this guy who doesn't really have a good body wearing a stripper outfit. Yeah. I know. I used to like.
A lot of people
when he,
share that thought, by the way.
Remember when he was working in ECW? I used to think the same thing. It was like, you know, let's like.
With the tights or the shorts were too small, with the money hanging out of it.
Yeah, and they fall off. Yeah.
I could not look past that outfit. I mean, people would always go, "Man, that Jason Jett's pretty good," or "That Easy Money's pretty good," and I could not look past that outfit.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people can't. I think that maybe one of the first things that happens when they sign him is they're gonna like send him an outfit rather than him coming up with one of his own.
Well, my real question was, I'm sorry. My real question is about the WWF, WCW possible angle they're going to do soon. Is one federation eventually going to take over the other? Is that what's going to happen if they go against each other?
There's nothing like there's no long-term plans, but eventually, yeah, I think that's just going to happen.
So
yeah, that's how it always ends up.
Destroy it.
That's how it always has ended up in the past.
Okay.
I don't see any reason why it would be different now.
Okay, I just wanted to know what people would be, since everything pretty much on North American TV is going to be WWF, Vince McMahon style programming, if more people are going to be interested in New Japan stuff, or maybe even Lucha Libre.
Not a whole group. I mean, there might be a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to be any great shakes unless they were to get on. I mean, Lucha Libre is on TV. I mean, for me, I'll tell you what. I will be watching, I think Brian too, we will be watching more Lucha Libre in the next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can tell you that. That's just how it's going to wind up. New Japan, you know, I always watch New Japan anyway, but it's not on TV in this country, so until it is, I don't know that it's really going to be anything more than a big cult thing of videotape collectors.
Yeah. Well, I remember a couple of years ago they ran When Worlds Collide. I don't know if you remember that pay-per-view.
Very much. I don't think I'll ever forget it.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I don't
that was
remember.
That was like the greatest pay-per-view.
That one was
like
Atlantis and...
Oh, what are you doing, Brian? That was like the greatest pay-per-view, like almost of all time, right up there in the top 3 or 4.
I couldn't believe the heat Eddie had on that one. Do you remember where he came out as, I think, Los Americas? I think the crowd was actually punching at him. It was just crazy.
They were.
Yeah. Is that normal? Because that was the first tape I ever got.
It kind of does it to the Latino people.
That was when Art Barr was doing that backstroke deal.
No, it was like pregnant women throwing stuff, throwing punches, and they were going back. It was just amazing.
That was an amazing show. I'll tell you what, the first night they were at the Sports Arena in L.A., which was about a year earlier, maybe a little over a year earlier, the heat was like twice what it was that night. Although that night was a super show too. I mean, that Santo Octagon against Love Machine and Eddie Guerrero match, that's one of the best matches of the decade, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. One last thing, wasn't K-Dog Max Moon?
He was supposed to be, but Max Moon was Tom Boric. He was originally the guy who was supposed to be Max Moon. He may have been Max Moon once or twice. I'm not sure if he ever played it or not, but
I thought he burned his bridges with the WWF that week by I think he abruptly left when they had this whole suit made for him, or was that somebody else?
No, they had the whole suit made for him, and he never showed up because he was such a big star in Mexico. And in hindsight, I bet he wishes he could take that back right about now, because that's gonna Vince doesn't forget, and he didn't forget that. And, that's what's happening right now.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, you're very welcome. Let's go to Jason. Jason, what's up?
Not much. How you gentlemen doing?
Really good.
I guess this is the night to talk about contracts, and I actually have a question about when Vince McMahon didn't technically Vince McMahon breach Bret Hart's contract by not allowing him creative control in the last 30 days of his contract?
Yes. Technically, I would say he absolutely breached his contract, yes.
My question then is why didn't Bret Hart sue him for that? Because there had to be a lot of money involved in that contract.
Because then Vince McMahon could sue him back for punching him in the face.
Yeah.
They were kind of at a legal stalemate, both sides.
Plus, can you imagine that whole thing in court?
Well, I don't know, and I don't know, but I would just think an assault charge for a punch is not going to be as much as that 20-year contract.
Well, Vince was claiming all of a sudden he had double vision. He was going to, what's Vince McMahon's vision worth? I know all of a sudden now we've never heard about double vision, but he'd have kept it at least until the trial.
Right.
Read the top line, Mr. McMahon.
There would have been a permanent injury there if Bret Hart would have filed a lawsuit.
Huh. Wow. Okay, I guess I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
What do you think Eric Bischoff will attempt to start up his own company from scratch and try and build it?
I think he would love to. The key is, can he get television? But if he could get strong enough television, absolutely he will. Or I should say he'll try. If he can get the funding and the television, yeah, for sure he will.
And earlier in the show, you said that he was going to, or someone said that he was going to hire Cyrus, and you said that he had a lot of good ideas that, did not come to terms. Is it possible that you could share some of those ideas, or is that something that you would?
Nah, because I'm trying to get the WWF to do them, and if I say them now, and it comes out they were Eric's ideas.
Okay,
I would say Eric's ideas. They were ideas that people had pitched to Eric.
Yeah.
And they were good ones, but
he was willing to do.
Yeah, but he would have been willing to do them.
Okay. Well, hopefully he can start his own company and do those things, because I just don't see how wrestling can stand for what we're about to suffer through.
Yeah. Well, if he can, the whole key is the TV. If he can get a strong network to pick something up, the talent's going to be there, and he'll start something up. And if they can and they're viable, it's a whole new ball game, and it'll be good. It'll be good for wrestling. But the TV, that TV barrier is so strong right now. The fact that he couldn't get the TV when he needed to. That was to me the real news from last week was that here he had the chance to get the company, and the reason he didn't get it was because no TV station wanted it.
Do you think come this summer that those TV spots might open up with the writer's strike?
That would help, possibly. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm surprised that some of these networks were not more interested, for that very reason.
Yeah.
Because it is still first-run programming, it still can draw ratings. The problem is the advertising community is looking very negative on wrestling, and that's the killer right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. You guys have a good night.
Okay. Thank you very much. We are totally out of time. I want to apologize to everyone whose phone calls we didn't get to. And I will put the emails on the stack, and hopefully we can get some more. Then we will be here tomorrow at 5 p.m., and we'll be here all week. And I want to mention also that Wednesday we're going to have Jerry Lawler, and Thursday I think we're going to have the first long interview in pro wrestling of Brock Lesnar. So it's going to be a good week. We'll see you all tomorrow at 5. How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. Got Brian Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, with us, and of course our special guest today will be Daryl Peterson, Max Payne, Man Mountain Rock. He's several different names. He'll be up in about a half an hour. We'll talk to him about the current scene, his career, and we'll catch up on all of the news, and there's no shortage of news today, of course, and certainly tons of emails that we'll try to get to as many as we can as well. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
That's good. You're still here.
I know, I'm still at the house.
Oh, man,
I was shocked at the number of people that believe that I was actually at your house.
Yes, but actually, this is what Brian is going to sound for the rest of our lives. He had a voice transplant over the weekend, and actually during the week.
I got the box put in.
Yep.
In my throat.
I know, the cane box. For all that time,
like
I
have one of those when I get bored here.
What?
A voice changer.
Yeah.
Hey, this isn't the Howard Stern show.
Okay, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. I guess, let's see. Smackdown did a 4.9 rating, which is, actually considering what it was up against, it's pretty good. It was the last show after WrestleMania. They did the big angle on Monday. Not too surprising. Gene Okerlund and Bobby Heenan are at the Fan Fest as we speak in Houston, and they are going to be announcing the Gimmick Battle Royal, which is a big deal on the internet, but it has not been hyped on television. It's one of those things where, and I saw like they had a poll of like the match you're most looking forward to at WrestleMania, and it was like first, and Rock and Awesome was second, and it's like I think that's why like these polls mean nothing.
That's going to be a letdown to a lot of people too.
Well, the ring entrances will be the whole match, because if they go any length of time, I mean it's real battle royals with real wrestlers are really not.
Are usually horrible.
Yeah, they're usually horrible, and they usually have them at WrestleMania so guys get payoffs, and they're invariably the worst match on the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, I mean, Sheik and Volkov, I mean, we've seen those guys. Oh, my God.
Volkov I'm not so worried about, but the Iron Sheik. How long ago was that Here's a Wrestling show? That was like a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah, October.
I was afraid he wasn't going to make it out of that show.
He may never get out of the ring.
And he didn't have to take a bump over the top rope at that show either.
I don't think he's going to. Well, we'll see. We'll see how he does that. I don't know. Do not know. Let's see. The MLL pay-per-view is tonight with Perro Aguayo against Mascherano. Speaking of people who can't take bumps over the top rope, that match is going to Perro Aguayo against Universo dos Mil. And actually the undercard will probably be really good, and hopefully I'll have a tape of that one towards the latter part of this coming week. So that'll be cool. I'm going to start getting into more EMLL wrestling, actually starting this coming Tuesday. I'm going to use that extra time I got from not having to watch wrestling to start watching that. The Doink the Clown in the Battle Royal is going to be Gary Fall, who also was known as Ray Apollo, and I think those are the names he was, and also Doink the Clown. He was the second Doink, because Matt Osborne was the first one, and then Matt Osborne got into trouble, as he always does, and they had to get a new Doink. Let's see, what else do we have here? Shawn Michaels, I am presuming strongly, will not be at WrestleMania after all that build-up. I was last night kind of told that that's how things are planned, and as far as what, if any, long-term plans they have they have no long-term plans for Shawn Michaels now, I'm thinking, and I would be surprised to see him back at any time in the near future, but stranger things have happened. We'll try to find more out about that. And
man, what was he thinking at the time?
What, Shawn?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, this
first day back, everyone knows why he was gone. Just makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you don't come to work not ready to work after they've kept him out for how long? They made him, like really eat it, for all this time, and they, bring him back at the last minute for the WrestleMania thing, and then he shows up Monday and Tuesday, and they are afraid to put him on the air, and it's just like, and this is like his last chance. I mean, like, that's the reason he hasn't been around for all this time. I mean, as a TV personality, everyone knows, the fans are going to pop for him. Everyone, likes him. They all respect that he was one of the greatest performers of all time. He's got kind of a legacy. And, what can I say? This one's his own fault, though.
Especially sad because he had all those, he was on the internet regularly, putting his columns up and doing the all, well, everyone writes these things about me, but the fact is I'm a changed man. Things are different now.
I'm a changed man. I have a wife and a kid.
Yep, wife and a kid, it changed me.
Yeah. One of those things about changed men I've noticed in wrestling is that, like, a lot of them just don't seem to change. Or if they change, they don't change for long.
They change back when they get in the arena.
That's the problem is sometimes they really do change when they get away from wrestling, but then as soon as you're back around the same people, you kind of end up doing the same things. I mean, I know some other people. It's the environment. I know another, without mentioning names, I just can recall another wrestler who, changed and did change for the same reasons. And then I heard some reports on him, and, he changed back too. Let's see. Mexican wrestling legend Rolando Vera passed away last night of a heart attack at the age of 71. I don't know a lot about him. I don't think that he ever wrestled in the United States. He may have, but I'm not. I know when I was, of course, he was done in wrestling by the late 60s. So I would have never seen him, and I wouldn't even known. But I don't remember him ever wrestling in Texas or California, where a lot of the Mexican stars did wrestle. But he was NWA World Middleweight Champion from 1956 to 1960. And let me see, what other stuff do we got? AAA's doing King of Kings tonight as well. Let's see, what else? What do you think of SmackDown last night?
I think the strangest thing of the whole SmackDown show was the fact that they did the Rock Austin angle in the middle of the show, and they had both guys arrested or whatever, taken away by security.
Too many cops last night. I was so sick of cops. I wanted to shoot those cops.
Oh yeah, I know. And it was so dumb because you do an angle the week before where the cops are fake, and then the next week the cops are supposed to be real, and it's like, you know, why did Undertaker believe that the cops were real this week when they went to handcuff him? I guess he didn't because he beat him up, but and then the whole thing, the arrestings are so dumb.
It's like he got arrested for filing a restraining order, right?
But then not for attacking policemen.
But then he beats up all these cops, and then, you know, Helmsley doesn't get arrested for, you know, smashing up a limousine with a sledgehammer. I mean, not a limousine. I mean, the bike with a sledgehammer. And it's like the whole thing is just too. The cop thing is just too.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It's too much suspension of disbelief that makes no sense. Yeah, you know, it's like if you're going to have police arrest people during wrestling shows, then you can't do things, you know, overtly that when cops are on hand looking at you, you know, like the cops are like holding Undertaker, and then Hunter sucker punches him right in front of the cops, and he's not arrested. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Especially the whole thing with Undertaker coming out and he says, you know, I talked to a lawyer, and I talked to a bail bond guy or whatever, and I will be out of jail in 12 hours. And this is before he even got arrested. And then he caused all this havoc, and we're supposed to believe that he talked to his lawyer and explained he was going to beat up cops and all this, or, you know, how does it work? If you tell the bail bond guy that you're going to go kill somebody in advance, and he says he'll get you out in 12 hours, and you go kill a guy and you get out in 12 hours?
Well, yeah. Even if you have repeated arrests on a weekly basis every Monday night, there's a pattern here.
It was just lame. And then, you know, they arrest them, and it's like, you kind of expect, well, they've been arrested in the middle of the show. They'll come back at the end of the show for the big angle, and big angle did not end up involving them at all. They were gone. And Steve Regal's music played at the end of the show before the music video. And just thought that was kind of weird.
No. You missed the end of the show, Brian. The end of the show was Steve Austin.
Oh, with Austin. Yeah, I guess you're right. Sorry.
Okay, so you did see that, yeah. Okay. But there's no other angle, yeah. I didn't think, for a final show going into WrestleMania, I didn't think it was a good show at all.
No. I think they expected, like, the music video was going to be the big hype for the show, but I fast-forwarded through it.
Yeah. There was, I don't remember. The Hunter Undertaker thing at the very beginning, I was really, I don't know, I was bored during the opening angle. And I thought Benoit did a good job, you know, when they got the ankle lock on him, when Angle put the ankle lock on Benoit. And the way he tapped and sold it, I thought that was, you know, very professional and the right way to do it. That was good. And then the rest, I don't know, just
I think there was just something about that opening promo. It was one of those promos where they just talk for 20 minutes and say absolutely nothing. Which actually has been a lot of them lately, but this one in particular, it was like, Hunter, he was out there for 15 minutes, and the gist of what he was saying was, I'm going to beat The Undertaker. And then Undertaker comes out and talks for 10 more minutes, and all he said was, no, you're not. And that was it.
Should have done it in 2 minutes.
Can't we have a little something, a little more meat in that interview?
And the other thing, it just seemed like watching the show that it was like last week's SmackDown, where you just feel like you're watching forever, and there's no wrestling, and even Raw on Monday. The last couple of shows, you're watching forever, and then you start thinking, you know, I'm actually seeing absolutely no wrestling on this wrestling show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like these long segments, you know, without actually anything going on in the ring, or when it does go on in the ring, you know, it's like, you know, the match goes on, and the match takes like a minute and a half to do the match.
Yeah, let's see, they had 5 matches last night. Ivory and Trish was real short. Rhino and Matt Hardy was short.
Yeah, and, real short. But
yeah.
The APA match, I mean, that thing was over right away.
One of the things on the shows that's been annoying me lately is the fact that they do all the... I don't mind so much a replay on SmackDown of something that happened on Raw, but sometimes they'll do a replay on SmackDown of something that happened in, like, the first hour of SmackDown. Like, maybe somebody missed that hour, and it seems like just a waste of time. I mean, it doesn't bother me so much because I fast forward, but I'm just thinking of these people that are watching it live and just having to sit through all this nothing.
I watched it live, and I think that, you know, and usually I tape SmackDown and watch it later, and often watch SmackDown in well under an hour and a half because of fast forward. But I decided to watch it live last night, and it was a lot slower moving to me than before. And all those replays, it was like, God, I mean, there's so many chances to just go up. I kept getting that feeling of, I just go upstairs and check my emails. You know what I mean? And then by the time I come down, the next match is already over. It's like, oh God. Anyway, I didn't think it was a good show, and certainly not, for the last show before Mania. I wasn't really any more hyped. In fact, I would say I ended the show. This is not good. I ended the show less excited about Mania than when I started the show. That's not a good idea. I was a little bit excited about Austin and Rock, but I mean, I've been I would say the hype for Austin and Rock has not gotten me more excited than I was 4 months ago when I knew it was going to be the main event. I was probably maybe even slightly more excited then. They did a good job. I mean, I think they've done a good job far too late for the Benoit Angle match, but what they've done has been good. Undertaker and Triple H, I was watching that stuff last night. It was like, I mean, their angles, Undertaker got to beat up Triple H a little bit, then Triple H got heat back. I mean, it was psychologically sound build-up, but I don't know what. It just didn't really work for me. I mean, maybe because the interview dragged on so long.
It's just a long interview, and, during the first interview, they really didn't have anything an issue between the two of them. They just didn't like each other. And then the issue ended up being over a motorcycle. And I wasn't particularly excited to see the match anyway, and that added absolutely nothing to it for me.
But anyway, we will be on at midnight Eastern Time right after WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year. 4-hour show, then we'll be doing a 1-hour post-game wrap-up, Brian and myself here on Yada.com. I'm sure everyone knows that, but we're going to mention it at least 3 or 4 more times in the next 2 hours. Let's see. This is our poll question for today. If you were Bill Goldberg, would you, A, negotiate a buyout and sign with WWF, or B, sit and collect your money from Time Warner? Actually, until you know the numbers, it's probably an unfair question, but the way the numbers look out, I think we know the answer on that one. This is the poll question for yesterday. How will the cancellation of WCW on television affect the time you spend watching wrestling? A, we'll spend more time watching WWF, 13%. B, we'll spend more time watching independent wrestling, 3%. That was not a good sign. C, we'll spend more time watching international wrestling, 10%. D, will spend less time watching wrestling, 33%, and then stopped watching WCW a long time ago, so it will have no effect, 42%. Now, that makes no sense because we have far more than 42% of our listenership, usually say that they watch Nitro, except in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Not last week's show. Last week's show did pretty well. Let me see. What else? Actually, any other main news? That's kind of the main news here.
That's about it.
All right. We could start hitting emails here.
I would like to plug a show tonight, by the way, at Edmonds Community College. I'm going to be wrestling on it. And it's a startup group. And I don't want to get this wrong because these people would kill me, but I believe that the people that are helping put it together are the same people that promote the Pancration shows that Josh Barnett works on. So
Matt Hume?
Show up, or they will beat you up.
So is it Matt Hume people?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, I don't want to say for certain because they would kill me, but
they'll break your ankles, that's for sure. Speaking of which, we got to get Josh Barnett on this show.
He may be there tonight, so I can ask him.
Yeah, Al, let's get Josh Barnett on the show.
Let's do that. But if Brian's going to be at the show,
Brian, if you see him, tell him that we're gonna, because when I saw him at UFC, I said, we're gonna put him on the show, and then he hasn't been on, so we should do that. What else do we have here? I'll start with some emails here. Oh, also, I'm going to make mention that I'm going to be on with Mark Madden right after this show is over, actually, on ESPN1250.com. So it's ESPN Radio with Mark Madden. We'll be talking about wrestling, believe it or not. And I'm also going to be on with Larry Cutler in St. Louis tonight at 11, that's Central Time.
Hey, why don't you bring up to Mark the Jim Cornette hypothetical question story?
About the canoe?
About? Yes, about the canoe. And he said, remember, he said, Mark Madden, you need a steamship for him.
Yeah. And I'm doing what show? Al, tomorrow morning I'm doing Howard Bloom. Now, what is that? ESPN Radio?
No, it's not ESPN Radio. It's radio up in Canada. Give me a minute. When we come back from a break, I'll have that info for you.
Okay. I'm just running crazy here. Anyway, let's start with some of the emails. Let's see. We got, can you tell me, it's from Hector Veloz, who goes, can you tell me what's the best mixed martial arts event on video? I would say the Pride Grand Prix from May the 1st of last year, if I had to pick one show and say that that was the best show, with the Hoist Gracie, Kazushi Sakuraba 90-minute match, that would be my pick. That was that tournament and everything, that was an awesome show. Let's see. Ron Schneller says, is it true that WCW had Bobby Eaton show for other wrestlers to and from various facilities during the Disney World worldwide tapings in a golf cart? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know why that'd be surprising.
Yeah. Let's see. My own take on this rush to start up a second promotion is relax. What's the rush? Why not sit back, take a deep breath, see where McMahon is going, see what he isn't offering, then proceed to build your promotion around that void. Hey, no one's rushing. We're not going to have believe me, we're not having a second national promotion next week. Don't kid yourself, no matter what you hear. I'll tell you one thing, though. There are too many people out there wanting to establish themselves as number two. This is counterproductive to the cause. I say that anyone with any intention of forming a startup should see if they can all work together for a common cause. Jerry Jarrett, J.J. Dillon, Dusty Rhodes, Eric Bischoff. It ain't going to happen. Everybody wants to be a chief. Nobody wants to be an Indian. Well, nobody's going to be anything if all these wannabes go at it alone. Okay. What else here? I was watching Hardys and Lita on Off the Record. Listening to them talk about all the bumps they've taken and how much they worked during the past year got me thinking, wouldn't they, along with The Rock, be the right ones to send to WCW? That way they can get some rest on their bodies and give WCW a real good tag team to start. Of course, I'd like to see them team Kidman and Shane Helms and do a feud with the Hardys. Hey, that's a good idea. We talked about the Hardys. That actually makes sense. It gives Jeff a rest. Lita's kind of a big star right now. Rock would be good. These are all good ideas. Do you know exactly what happened with Shawn?
And you know what's going to happen in the end is going to be Billy Gunn.
I know. And then it's just going to be death. Let's see. Do you know what happened with Shawn at SmackDown? I think he fell asleep or something. I don't know. He just wasn't in, whatever it was, he was not in condition to perform, and they didn't let him perform, and he was not happy, and that's the deal. This is from Trent Walters, who goes, I would prefer, this is actually a good letter, too. He goes, I prefer a 90-minute time slot for WCW. The late-night audience does not grow. That's right. From 11 to 1, like traditional wrestling audience, you're on 8 to 10, 9 to 11. The idea is that you grow every quarter hour, which hadn't seemed to happen for Thunder a lot lately, and really not even for Nitro, but theoretically, even some of the Raws haven't done that lately. But generally speaking, that's what happens. The late-night audience doesn't grow, so building up a main event in the final 30 minutes will be counterproductive. That's a great point. If you're doing that, you got to pretty much have the main event on very early in the show, if you're booking that kind of a show. And the problem with that is if you're doing a 2-hour TV taping...
What show used to do that? Wasn't it like the old Saturday Night main events?
Saturday Night Main Event always did the main events like they put the main event on first or second, right?
Yeah.
I think usually second. And they always say...
And that was for an hour show. If you put a main event on first and then go another hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes after that, it's gonna be bad news.
It's gonna be tough. Well, think about also the live crowd, okay? You put the main event on early, and then you've got this live crowd that's already seen the main event, and then you want them to stick around for another hour. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but something you could do there is just, do something simple like put on the TV main event first, and then,
and have a dark match main event.
You could shoot an angle before the taping to lead to the off-TV main event, and that way the people would have, something built up for that main event to stay for, but, TV audience would know nothing about it.
Now, here's another one also. What do you think about the idea of bringing, say, like The Rock and Triple H or big names to the Wednesday television tapings? They don't appear on the show itself, but they're the main event in a dark match, so at least, you have something that will draw a crowd. Because right now they don't have anything that will draw a crowd, obviously, because they haven't drawn any crowds.
I think that'd be good, like, at the beginning, just because they need something to build it up. But down the road, I mean, if they really want to build it up and it gets to the point where it's drawing at least somewhat of a rating and they can do some pay-per-views, I think if they want to keep it separate, they need to get those guys out of there until they're ready for the interpromotional deal. At the beginning, though, I think it'd be awesome, though.
Well, I think at the beginning you kind of have to, but we'll see. I mean, we'll find out. Anyway, because I think that building something in the final 30 minutes will be counterproductive because a lot of the audience will have tuned out. As well, I would rather see 90 minutes of good, solid work and writing than have them try to fill 2 hours. 2 hours dilutes the product. Finally, the reason Vince wouldn't give, or TNN wouldn't give Vince a great time slot for the show is twofold. Number one, the XFL hasn't met the numbers Vince promised, so why should TNN believe that the WCW will? Actually, the
because
WCW
there's
though
different
is
football and wrestling.
Yeah, it is his field of expertise, and football clearly is not. And number two, TNN executives think that TNN is more successful now due to the WWF programming, not due to the WWF programming, but due to the We've Got Pop brilliant marketing that is the envy of TV stations around the world. Yeah, if you took those numbers for Raw out of the TNN and just averaged the other 6 nights in prime time, I bet it wouldn't be all that much different than it was last season. I think that the only difference is that they got that 4.7 to 5.3 or 4 every Monday night, which takes their 0.7 average up to like a 1.1 for the week. Mm-hmm. I bet that's like almost all of the gain. You hear that Goldberg's going to be in the Battle Royal.
Oh, another big name.
Yeah, I tell you, that if they do not have some sort of a deal with Bill Goldberg, putting Goldberg in the Battle Royal is really stupid. I mean, they're building something up. This is something that WWF has never ever done in its history, is build up something in the fans' eyes that they want to see more than what they're presenting, that they're not going to deliver. And they've never done. I mean, that's one of the things that I've always admired about Vince McMahon as a promoter, is the fact that he doesn't waste time swerving people on something he ain't going to follow up on, generally speaking. And I don't,
That's kind of been the whole thing with Gilbert from the beginning, though.
Well, no, but at the beginning it was
dumb from day one.
No, but I mean the whole thing of why he did it before was it was like a spoof on WCW. Mm-hmm. So now he's spoofing this guy who everyone thinks he's got now because they've been reading that he bought the company. That means he bought Goldberg, except he didn't. People don't know he didn't. So he's like, all it's going to do is get people to chant Goldberg, wait for the Goldberg run-in. I mean, when that guy comes out, everyone in that building's going to think Goldberg's going to come out and spear him. And spear everyone in the Battle Royal, and then they're going to get this horrible Battle Royal, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
I don't think, unless he does, unless they sign him.
Another thing, it's nowhere near the level of Goldberg, but it was in Jeff Merrick's Smackdown report last night. I didn't even think about this, but the fact that they showed a replay of Vince firing Jeff Jarrett, it's almost like building up that Jeff Jarrett's going to show up with Shane.
Oh, everyone's going to think that Jeff Jarrett's going to show up. I know. Very strange. Well, we'll find out.
Maybe he just figures who cares what they expect because they're going to get something.
Maybe he just thinks, hey, I own it all, and it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, they may not get Jarrett, but they'll get Booker T, so they'll be happy.
Yeah. That's not a definite that Booker T's going to be there, although I would...
I'm talking long term.
Well, but yeah. Well, Booker T's going to be on May 12th on TNN, that's for sure. If that's the start date, which it probably will be. What was the thing about all that? All of the wrestlers, the 24 wrestlers whose contracts were purchased by the WWF, they got notice Wednesday, I think it was. And they were told to fill out some form and send it. And when all of those things get back to the WWF office and everyone signed it, I think the WWF will then announce that we've signed these 24 guys and we'll get the actual list. The only name that I heard got a form that we didn't know before, which I figured, but I didn't know for sure, was Alan Funk, who's Kiwi. So it's all the lower paid guys. If Booker T has made a deal, I think he may be the only one as far as the big. Well, I'm sure he's the only one if he has of the big names. All of the ones that I've spoken with, none of them have even been approached, let alone made a deal. Most of the wrestlers have not. The other wrestlers, as best I can tell, have not been approached. Have you heard of anyone being approached besides those 24 guys?
No, that's it.
Okay. So that's where everything stands. Jim Ross in the Ross Report made mention of, that they may have agents announced, and everyone assumes that that's Arn Anderson and Fit Finlay. So it looks like they will probably be getting jobs. As far as announcers and all that, it's all subject. Who knows yet? Let me see. Where's Shawn Michaels been? He's been home. I thought he retired due to severe back injuries. Yes, he did. I hear talk of him coming back. Will he be commissioner again? Well, if he was, he's not going to be now. He's by far one of the greats. But the height of his fame came several years before the WWF became what it is now, which is unfortunate because had he stayed, he might have been able to reap some of the same kind of rewards Rock and Stone Cold have in today's media. You know what? He'd have self-destructed. I hate to say this, but if they had put him out there in the media, in the position that Rock is in, he would have been an embarrassment to the company. And that's why Rock and Austin are in the position they're in. Let's see, more ideas. I'd like to share with you my ideas for possible direction of the new promotion. I think Paul Heyman should be made in charge of booking. Could happen, but unlikely. He should take all the former ECW talent along with him. Not going to happen. That would include Rhino and Justin Credible, also include Saturn and Raven. In a sense, they could resurrect ECW with an all-star lineup within the WCW time slot. Those days are over. It's over. ECW is done. Okay?
If that ECW crew could have turned things around, then they would have done it on TNN the first time, in a better time slot.
Yeah. The more I think about this idea, the better it sounds. Doing so would turn the late 11 o'clock time slot into an advantage, as ECW has always been more associated with and oriented toward the more adult audience. There's some truth to that. The plan would also differentiate between the two products in a way that would give the casual fan a reason to watch both shows. Otherwise, I don't see how they would avoid the stigma of the other show becoming just a B show that nobody would ever want to watch, let alone purchase their pay-per-views. Okay. Okay, we got Max Payne on. Let me just go through. Let's see. How far do you think Brock Lesnar is from TV? I just looked at his picture, and he is a monster. Well, he said himself that he didn't want to be out there for, what did he say, at least 8 months to a year, right?
Yeah, he said 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. Okay, let me just go through this really quick. Anyway, we'll go through some of these as the show goes on. Max Payne, Daryl Peterson, how you doing today?
Best day ever.
Good.
And then some.
Well, I guess we should talk a little bit about your background for newer fans. You actually started as a wrestler. Was it Iowa or Iowa State?
Actually, I started with a junior college called North Idaho Junior College back in, I believe it was 80. And was there for 2 years and then went to Iowa State, for 3 years.
Did you set some sort of records, like break a Chris Taylor record?
I did, man. That's funny you should ask that, yeah. It's called an unofficial, NCAA record, but they still give me a trophy and, a plaque or something. And actually, Chris Taylor had an NCAA pin, the record of 4 pins in 13 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. And my record was actually 5 pins in 5 minutes and 32 seconds.
Is that in the tournament?
That was in the national tournament.
In the national tournament, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what did you place? Well, you placed second.
I placed fifth that year, but it's easy to say when you didn't win it. When you hear what I got to say about that, but I was actually more happier taking fifth because I got to beat some people that I hadn't beaten, my whole career at Iowa State, and so I just had the tournament of a lifetime, and it was just, it was great to beat like this guy from Oklahoma State by the name of Kalen O'Hara. And I stuck him in 32 seconds in the national tournament. It was, it's one of those things where all of a sudden, all the other losses I'd had to him seemed irrelevant. And he, in fact, I remember him cussing me as I was pinning him. He's going, "You son of a bitch." He says, "I beat you all year long and you beat me now." So that was fun. That was a great moment.
Now, after that, your pro wrestling, now, did you first get contacted by New Japan? Is that how you got into pro wrestling?
No, actually the way I got into pro was, I really didn't go to LA. I mean, I've got an article I'm going to try and put on my website, but, I just never believed I'd be a pro wrestler. I hated it in college because I was so, pissed off that every time I'd go through an airport and I'd tell somebody I was a wrestler, they'd go, "Oh, we watch you on TV all the time." I said, "You've never watched me on TV, all right? You've never watched what I do on television." Because they would go, "Huh? Don't, you're scaring me." But, as an amateur wrestler, nobody watches amateur wrestling on television. It's just one of those things that, not nobody, but the people that are, hardcore fans like myself. I mean, I stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning to watch,
Oh, watch ESPN too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do that sometimes when I'm coming home from the studio and, all right, cool, wrestling. But nobody else watches it, So they always would mistake us for whenever we would say wrestling, they'd say pro wrestling. And, there was that huge stigma attached to that, And so I would never confess to that.
So anyway, how did you first get hooked up with pro wrestling?
So then anyway, I moved out to LA and was looking for a job, like a real job, because I wanted to go out there and be an actor. That was really what I set forth to do in college, was be an actor and work in television and film. So I moved to LA to sort of seek, fame and fortune and do all that. And my first job was as a security guard in Los Angeles. And when you're a country kid from, even though I'd been to college, Iowa State's, right in the middle. Ames is a small town when school's not in session, And so I just basically lived in the country. You move to L.A. and all of a sudden you're a security guard. Well, my first gig there was as a security guard at a punk rock concert at the Olympic Auditorium in downtown. So I'm like scared to death doing that. And then the next gig I had was working at the Palladium for Tate, Tillman, and Gonzalez. And it just so happened that the owner of the security company heard I was a wrestler, and wouldn't you know, the guy was an Iowa State alumni. And he said, "Hey, I know this guy named Red Bastine. He's a pro wrestling trainer, and have you ever thought about that?" And, I was at a point where in L.A. where I was, ready to go home because I'd been there long enough, and my family was suffering enough that I thought, I better go home and get my life back together. And I met Red Bastine that afternoon, and the rest is kind of history. From that point forward, I went into his camp. At the time, he tried to get me to the camp that Sting and all the other guys were in, but it was a little too late. So I waited and went through the next camp after that. And one time, towards the end of the camp, Red said, "Would you be interested in going to Japan?" I said, at that point, after I tried it, I fell in love with it, because it just fit my personality so well to be able to, do a character and manifest all these things. I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. And the Japanese showed up to one of my practices and saw me and signed contracts, and the rest is history.
So you went over and basically started. Now, did you start your career in Japan with Brian Adams and Chris Benoit?
Let's clarify that, though. I started my career in Japan with Chris Benoit. Brian came on later, and his lazy butt, he didn't do any of the hard stuff. He came on, I got out on the easy part. Chris and I had already worked there for 9 months and lived in the dojo and got beat up every day. And Brian, being the lucky kind of guy that he is, just happened to fall, right into the best place and position he could fall in Japan. But Chris and I had actually been there since, like August, just working our guts out, living in the dojo.
Brian Adams was lazy?
Oh, my God.
How can that be?
I know that's hard for you to believe. I know this may be a revelation, but Brian...
Now, when you were over there, that was a weird time in the business in Japan anyway, because there's that whole...
Inoki and Baba I don't think they just split, but...
They had been split.
Yeah, they had been split for a while, but Inoki, it's really weird when especially, you got to understand, I didn't grow up a mark. I didn't grow up with the business at all. I loved it when I was a kid. I used to watch Rocky Mountain Wrestling when I was a kid and couldn't wait to see it, and then by 10:30 at night was sound asleep,
Mm-hmm.
But I used to wait to watch that, but I wasn't into the wrestling business. I was so devoted to the amateur wrestling business that I didn't have a background. I didn't know what New Japan was, or I didn't know anything about Inoki. In fact, I just realized about Inoki when I got there. That he was the one that had fought Ali. And
what's it like? Okay, you have this idea, and of course, now a fan now seeing someone like The Rock or Steve Austin or someone would kind of have an idea of what Inoki was. But in that day, I mean, there was nobody in the United States that was like Inoki over there. I mean,
no way. I would be surprised even today.
No, today it's not. But at least like with The Rock, there's a. If I say like Inoki's is bigger than The Rock, they can at least kind of in their minds.
Yeah. I guess you probably at least equivocal. I mean, The Rock's pretty over, man, isn't he?
Yeah, right. But like,
at least on the plane for sure.
Yeah,
but even then, the Japanese culture is different enough that they look at things a little differently. So once you take that into perspective of the whole thing, you realize the kind of it's a little different mentality there.
Yeah, because I used to tell people like Inoki was super over, and they would say Dusty Rhodes or Bruno Sammartino, and I go, you don't understand what I'm saying.
Oh my God, no, you don't have a. Well, that's what that's a classic example of what I'm talking about. I remember this one night, truly one of those nights to remember in Japan. I have to say, we went out, and a lot of times they would just come and get us, and just say pita. Sakaguchi would come in and go pita, and he would just with a hand signal, say, come here, and we'd know, okay, I guess we're going somewhere, So we'd go with him, and a lot of times it would be to these incredible places to eat and do all kinds of stuff. And so this particular evening, he came and got myself, and this evening, Brian Adams was with us, and we went to this party, and they fed us it's just really immaculate. It's a sit-down, really traditional Japanese dinner with everybody around the table. And, they realized rather quickly that we didn't like the cuisine of Japan, which is the little obentos and so on and so forth. And they said, what do you like? And we said, chicken, shrimp, and So they bring out these huge plates of chicken and shrimp and just are feeding us like crazy. And then we started drinking, and pretty soon it's just this huge party, and all of a sudden the host of the party is just drunk enough that he stands up and he gets really physical. The Japanese get really physical when they talk. Chotamate, and he stands up and demands that everybody pay attention because he has something to say, and he tells everybody, and then he taps his glass again. This very nice dressed up kabuki woman walks in with this huge silver domed, like a serving tray thing with envelopes in them. And he talks about everybody around the table, including us. And she walks around, and every envelope is labeled with names on them. And, I can see what they give everybody, and they bring it to us. And I had no idea what it was. I thought it was a card, or something. I had no idea. But I just watched what everybody else did, and they just put it in their pocket and didn't say nothing, right? So we get home, and I open it, and it's 300,000 yen. It's like, I don't know, I think that's like $300 or something. Sounds like $1 billion. It's like $300 or $400. And I remember seeing the size of Inoki's envelope, and the lip of the envelope wouldn't touch, So they would they would give presents out that were just immense to this guy just because of who he was and who he'd been with. And it went around the table like that. And I've never seen that happen in America. So I don't know. I've never.
There's a lot of things different over there than here.
Absolutely.
We were talking earlier, and it's a really professional wrestling is a very strange business, very unique business, and the fame and just the lifestyle is very addictive, which is one of the reasons why so many times when guys get older, they say they're going to retire, and then they never do, and then they keep coming back. And you were mentioning that, your retirement was kind of forced on you in that you just stopped getting booked. And you were talking about, that was a real tough blow.
I don't think, I think it's pretty easy for anybody to understand what it feels like when you think, you're a part of something and have that whole thing turn its back on you. At least you feel that way. You know what I mean? Your perception's that way. I think no matter who you are, that's gonna smack you around pretty hard. Especially when you devoted 11 years of your life to trying to be better at it and do things that maybe nobody else had tried to do before. And so it was really hard on me when the business went away. I laid around for 6 months, really confused. Partly because I personally was so addicted to painkillers and Valiums and everything else that it was all at once, what kind of thing too. It was cold turkey all at once, and it was difficult. And then it sort of went away, and I actually made the mistake of trying to go back into the business for 3 months. I went back to Europe, and I walked out in the middle of it because I couldn't take it no more. I couldn't go back to the lifestyle. And for me, it didn't work. And I realized at that time I was done. You know, I really said, that's it. You accomplished what you wanted to accomplish, which was allow yourself an opportunity to go on to something else that was more career-oriented. You're not going to be, 25 the rest of your life. Somehow I saw the sun shine through all that. And I think the way I found the sunshine was through my family. They just never gave up on me and was there with me through thick and thin. And that's how I made it through. But it was tough. It was as tough as any addiction that you could ever imagine to try and kick.
It's a weird thing because now, based on what you told me earlier, it was probably the best thing that ever happened in your life. But when it happened, it was at that moment probably the worst thing, right?
It was crushing, man. You just, especially when, I really tried very hard. And I really don't know. I don't know what I did wrong. To this day, I wished I had an answer. I wished I could say to you, because I made some mistakes. There's no question about it. I would never sit here and, deny that I was a retard. I made all kinds of mistakes that anybody does going to the show for the first time, I think. I think everybody, not necessarily everybody, but, there's been a lot of people that have done that. And I stepped back and said, okay, what do I got to do to change? But for some reason, I didn't get a second chance at all. I could never get anybody to return a phone call and tell me what was going on. And so by that time, I wasn't necessarily bitter. I was just turned off. And honestly, by that point in time, my focus of direction, by the time I'd moved back from Atlanta and moved home and sort of already started, the discharge from the business, I guess it was already sort of laid down that I was going to quit and go away.
And when you walked away, was it like you didn't talk to anybody anymore? Did you just
I have a couple
no
of
desire
friends.
for independent bookings or anything like that?
No, I didn't consider anything. I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't. I just took my boots off because the reality of it is, I told Vince from the very beginning that I wasn't a wrestler. I really didn't want to be a wrestler in the WWF. I really wanted to be a talent. I really wanted to be somebody that, that was an idea guy and brought forth, things to the business that were outside the ring. Because I honestly never felt I was a very good wrestler. I loved the business. I loved the premise of the business and the fundamental, part of the business that's the sort of classic theater mentality. If you scrape away all the stuff down underneath, all of the exterior parts of the business is this beautiful nugget of Greek tragedy. That was the part I really dug. But actually being in the ring was not the part that I felt was my best asset. I wanted to be a musician in the WWF and a character like Jesse, who interviewed and, brought special segments and the boys could do videos with, and it was just kind of that guy,
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason I could never get through, to the office, especially to Vince, that's what I wanted to do. And for some reason, I don't know if Vince and I just didn't hit it off from the beginning or what. I thought we did. Like I said, to this day, the hard part for me is I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Did you talk to him about, working behind the scenes with the music, or was it more like...
from the beginning.
Uh-huh.
From the beginning, producing things and, producing videos.
Was there ever a talk, because I don't know if that was with you, but I remember there was talk at one point that they would actually have like a WWF band, which would be like wrestlers.
Yeah.
And I think that for whatever reason it never, were you involved in that and then it never got going for some reason?
No, let's, is that the line of direction of questioning you want to go in? Because that's a long story. That starts way back in WCW days with Brian and, that goes way, way back. So, if you want to head down that road, well, let's head down.
Yeah, sure, let's go.
Well, like I said, I from the day, it's really funny. Let me just start this whole thing out with the interesting thing about what I always found was a problem was no matter what promoter I put my gimmick in front of them, they all told me no, I couldn't do it. Even Vince. And I never understood that. I never understood why they couldn't just let me be me. They always wanted to control some part of it. The Japanese told me no, I couldn't be Max Payne. And I said, well, I'm going to be Max Payne. That's my character. That's what and they said, no, you're not going to be Max Payne. I come home to Memphis. I take that back. Let me give Lawler enough credit here, because Lawler took it way over the edge and took it into a darkness that, in some ways, I really enjoyed it. I didn't like the Satan ties, but I at least enjoyed the darkness side of it. You know what I mean? But every promoter I ever worked with, told me, no, I couldn't do that. And, I always wanted to be a musician, and somehow it struck me when I was in Japan that was sort of the liaison. A heavy metal wrestler that actually came to the ring playing and then did music and, all this other stuff on the side. And so I just started working on that. I always wanted to play the guitar. It gave me good reason to carry a guitar around with me and practice all the time. It gave me good reason to really be the gimmick that I wanted to be. But at Memphis time, shortly after Japan, I still, I wasn't ready yet. I still hadn't practiced and had felt comfortable enough about it. And so then I went to Europe. I did my own little wrestling organization for a while, went to Europe, and midway through Europe, this thing was just dwelling on me so hard. I actually met a record executive at the time, too, who was an American living in Germany. And I told him I wanted to do this, and he said, well, then there's only one thing for you to do. Just go home and work your guts out between the tours. I was in Germany for 2 seasons with Otto Wanz. So I came home. It was right after Metallica's Black album had came out. And I came home, and I just practiced like 20 hours a day for 5 months nonstop. Just everything I could think of. And I went back to Europe, and Otto would not let me do this gimmick.
Oh, I could bet.
He told me I was such an idiot. He actually called me an idiot. And finally we got to Hanover, and Peter Williams said to me, he said, I went to him and I said, Peter, let me try. Let me just try it. What do we got to lose? Let's try this, because, God, in Hanover there were 13 people there on a Monday night, So I'm like, what do we got to lose? If we run these 12 offs, 6 more drunks will show up abstractly just for no reason, So, anyway, I talked him into it, and he was much more theatrical oriented in terms of his wrestling program. He controlled Hanover. Otto had nothing to do with Hanover. And I was practicing one day. Fit Finley, man, God bless Fit Finley. Fit, if you're listening and you hear this, please send me an email, because I love Fit Finley. God, he is such a stud. I was playing, and Tony St. Clair walked in. He said, I am begging you to shut that shit off. And I'm going, what? He goes, that sucks. Don't do that. And I said, well, I'm doing it, Tony. And he walked out all disgusted. And when he walked out the door, Fit goes, can I say anything or what?
Yeah.
I can say the F word?
Sure.
Or do you prefer not to have that on the air?
I would prefer not to. But
okay, then
do it if you want to. I won't stop you. You're too big for me.
No, I'm not going to. Because I would rather not cuss. But you get the drift. He basically said, Max, just don't worry about Tony. He can go blank himself, on Main Street, and just keep doing your gimmick. And so I did the gimmick, and the first night I did it, there was 20 people there. And then they advertised it. The next time I did it, there was 80 people there. The next time I did it, there was 200 people there.
It's better than the XFL now.
Yeah. So by the end of the whole thing, we were packing the tent in Hanover. It was truly unbelievable. Dave Taylor and Lord Stephen turned me babyface. I was a heel up till then, completely a heel. But then I started playing every night and doing this playing thing, and the crowd just ate it up. And I became Heavy Metal Buffalo when they turned me babyface, and we sold out all the
Heavy Metal Buffalo.
Oh yeah, and isn't that ridiculous? Yeah, exactly. They actually wanted me to do that in the WWF, and I said to who was it? It was
Heavy Metal Buffalo.
Yeah, he actually goes, God, that's JJ goes, God, that's cool. I go, don't even think about it, JJ. I am not doing Heavy Metal Buffalo in the World Wrestling Federation.
You ended up in the Gimmick Battle Royal on Sunday.
Yeah. So anyway, it all started there. I started playing, and Bill Watts saw it, and I sent him a tape. And
Bill Watts?
Yep. Rip Rogers.
Oh my God.
Saw my matches. Bill Watts and I had already talked actually once before he liked the amateur background thing.
Sure,
but
yeah.
he dug, man, believe it or not, he dug the guitar thought process. And so from that day forward, once I got into WCW as Max Payne, you know, they did the Norma Jean's Blues thing. I did a music video right at the very first. And, you know, Dusty tried, but Dusty just, you know, Bill left, Dusty tried, then nobody ever gave a crap. And, you know, that was sort of the size of it. So, yeah, the band thing all started back that long ago. And from that moment forward, once I got out of the WCW, you know, from the time I met with Vince, my goal was merely to be the support structure for Brian, you know, to be the musical, the band background, Monday Night Raw mentality. I would love to have been a Monday Night Raw band, you know, or whatever.
They tried that with Michael Hayes once.
Yeah.
The Raw band. Remember that for a little while?
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I never even got an opportunity to try. So I did one time, and it was absolutely the worst night of my life. Dave actually made intense fun of me that night. The night with Bob Backlund.
Oh, God.
Absolutely the worst. You know, you can't, I mean, whatever you wrote about me in that one, Dave, you know, thumbs up to you, because I felt 50 times worse than you wrote about me. I guarantee you. You know, first of all, they put me in the Madison Square Garden with a PA system out of a bar. I've got a monitor system from a bar with a guy who runs it in the bar. I'm like, this is Madison Square Garden, and you want me to play with the system you use in a bar from 20 feet away? It was really the worst equipment I'd ever seen in my life. And, you know, I inside me, everything in my bones was raging, don't do this. You know, then they wanted me to job for Bob, and I didn't mind that. That part of the business doesn't bug me at all. But just the whole music thing was so wrong. You know, I really wanted to just say no. And I begged Vince after that show. I said, Vince, I'm begging you, if we're going to do this, please, it has to be done, you know, by pros, you know, by the top AV people in the world, or it's going to fail and fail horribly. And I guess the rest sort of speaks for itself, you know.
In WCW, I guess I don't know if you consider these your most memorable matches, but I think most people consider your most memorable matches with the Cactus Jack against the Nasty Boys. When we were doing that program, it was like I guess it would be like what hardcore wrestling is now, but then it was actually kind of a novelty, especially on pay-per-view. The matches that you guys had, and what you know, was that the highlight of your career, or what would you consider the highlight of your career?
Well, I kind of have mixed emotions about the Nasty thing, because I learned a lot from them in the sense of how to be an asshole, you know, because if you're not with them, they will just, you know, take such hardcore advantage of you that, you know, if you don't protect yourself, they don't care whether they hurt you or not. So from one sense, I got beat up probably worse than I ever did, because they were just such horribly sloppy wrestlers that they would just hurt you and, you know, oh, was that stiff, brother? Well, the fact that I have no teeth now, you know, should probably indicate that you may have been just a little stiff on the knee, big boy. But no, there were several times that they rendered me unconscious, dropping knees on my forehead and smashed me into the turnpost, and, you know, I actually lost the feeling in the whole entire side of my face one night after working with them, because they trapped my arms, then ran my head into the post. Looking back in retrospect, I'm absolutely convinced that it was intentional, you know, I mean, but, you know, at some point you still hope that people have enough respect to protect you, and the Nasty Boys, you always wondered about them. But we sure had some moments, you know, I have to say, in terms of whether they were the sort of pinnacle of my career, I guess I don't really have much of a choice but to say yes, because, you know, it was really the last big thing and the only big thing, you know, and not the only, I think the Johnny B. Bad thing was something, but they were certainly the highlight of my career and between WCW and WWF, that's for sure. I have real mixed emotions about that. Really
now, what? Explain. I mean, I remember, this is really vague, but you and Cactus Jack were a team, and then I don't know if this affected him, and I don't know if it affected you, but there was a segment on a television show. And I don't remember the show anymore, where they were talking about Missy Hyatt's lawsuit. And I think they came up to both of you.
I was there on that one.
Okay.
That was after that match, actually. You know,
Okay.
that was actually after the match. You know, we were walking back to the, Super 8 motel that's across the parking lot, or the Hotel 6, I don't know, it's one of the cheap ones, across the parking lot from the United Center. And, of course, he and I, trying to save money, we certainly didn't, drive there. He assured me that it was much easier just to walk there than try to drive the car there. And, I realized how nice it would have been to sit in a car after the match with the Nasty Boys, just to get back to the hotel. But we're walking out of the arena. Before we go to there, I think I have to precede this with something, because there was a moment in that match that evening that I'm sure that we all felt that I'm not sure even the audience realized, and I felt it was a precedent-setting moment for me. I was absolutely probably the biggest night of my life. And especially after I saw the movie Gladiator, just, recently, there was a moment in that match where the audience was so prepared to accept death that it just scared the ever-loving crap right out of me. And I don't know if you know what I mean by that. I'm not trying to be, real dark here, or whatever you want to say, but there was a moment where things were getting, crazy enough that the crowd, would have easily accepted, a gladiator-type moment there, and everybody would have been abhorred, but by the same token, everybody would have watched it happen. And it was one of those moments where I went, this is a little bit over the edge, And I walked away from there with some very mixed feelings about the match. And I know Cactus did, because I watched him cough up part of his, lung, and God knows what other, parts of his internal organs was in, what he coughed up. But when we walked out of there, I certainly wasn't feeling like I was on cloud nine, even though nobody ever sat down that whole match. And then he did the interview with Missy, and he and I had a lot of conversations, up till then. And it was it was an interesting moment. I wish I could find the exact words to describe how I felt, how he felt, when we went back to the hotel, but we sat there for a while and didn't say much, Like I said, it was an interesting night, all in all. And Cactus actually said, "Yeah, I hope Missy gets a bunch of money out of Ted." And
yeah, that was
got a bunch of press over that. I'm in the background going, "Cactus, shut up, shut up."
That was the beginning of the end for him in that company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it didn't help me much either.
I know it probably would have been a lot better for your career to actually work with Cactus instead of teaming with him. But what did you?
I wouldn't have wanted to do that either. I worked with him, and we were the wrong people to put together as oppositions. We really were. It was much better as a tag team. The Office, the Office was just scared of our tag team. They really were. I remember Bill Dundee said, "I don't get it. I don't get how two fat, ugly sons of bitches like you can get over." And I'm like, dude, why does that just abhor you so much? Twinkie eaters need a hero. People who eat pizza and watch wrestling, they need a hero because, not all of them look like The Rock, or Stone Cold. There's got to be the fat guy identification thing out there somewhere, And it just killed him that fat guys could get over,
Mm-hmm. What was it between the two of you that didn't work out as far as having matches?
I didn't enjoy, I don't know what it was. I mean, we had a couple matches in England, and they were okay, but they were nothing to write home to Mom about. And it was just one of those things where I much preferred the shtick we did as partners, Mm-hmm. I much preferred the interviews as partners, I think it was kind of a nice sort of scenario. It was a nice balance with Mick and I. And I enjoyed my time with Mick, I have to say. I really did.
Now, the last tour that you were with the WWF, you brought your video camera. And what's the story on all that?
Well, for some reason, I'm really not quite sure what the reason I took my video camera with me was. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. And for some reason, I didn't know it was my last tour. So looking back in retrospect, you know, it even seems more miraculous that I took the dang thing with me, because I certainly, and after you see the whole movie, and you see what, I mean, you actually already hear sort of what I say towards the end of the movie anyway, which is, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing this again tomorrow. And, you know, that was at the last thing I said on the videotape was, oh yeah, I can't wait to go to work tomorrow, basically, and I was done. So, you know, it was really a tough moment in time, because here I am thinking that things are going great, and I've got this movie in my back pocket now. So I take my video camera and do this movie on this last tour, and I don't know why I took it, don't know why I shot it. Certainly wasn't easy, you know, doing what I did. But I sort of it's funny because I didn't even realize I had it till almost a year and a half ago, and I knew I had it, but I never really sat down and looked at it. But I realized how complete it was, and it's got some incredible things on it. I think anyway. I think there's some moments that no wrestling fan has ever seen, and knowing the wrestling business, I'm sure that Vince would never, you know, show you the moments the way I've showed them, just simply because it takes away a little bit from the control factor. But this is just a moment with basically a guy that took his camera on the road, and it was amazing how candid everybody was. You know, nobody even hesitated a second, being candid on camera and being themselves. And so it really, I think it's a very interesting piece of film. And so I shot this movie, and anybody who wants to see a trailer of it, you can go to my website at maxpayne.com, and there's 3 levels of download there, and you can see the preview to The Thing That Should Not Be, which is a 3.5 hour, an hour and a half is probably what it'll end up being, an hour and a half movie of life on a road with a wrestler, and a wrestler who didn't make it, who tried desperately to make it and thought he was making it, and by the crowd's response, you'd hope that he'd make it, but for whatever reason, I didn't make it. So that's what turned out.
How close do you follow wrestling these days?
The closest, you know, I got a couple friends still in the, well, I should say one friend that contacts me, you know, we stay in contact. I don't know much about it, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I know who the stars are. I know what the people that I care about that, you know, I still feel like I have some contact with. I know what they're doing. I pay enough attention to you know what they're doing. But, you know, I'm certainly not partly because I don't have the time. You know, I actually do kind of enjoy watching it and seeing people like Chris, you know, finally arise to the top and so on and so forth. But I don't watch wrestling very much.
Now, you know, as someone who was in wrestling, and wrestling has changed, you know, you haven't been out of it that long, yet it's an entirely different business in many ways. You know, I mean, just we talked about, you know, Peter William and Otto Vance. I mean, they basically, you know, that CWA doesn't exist.
Yep.
WCW doesn't exist.
Oh my God.
You know, I mean, it's like, what? You know, I mean, it's really turned into a very. I mean, what are your thoughts as far as if you were a wrestler or just knowing what you know about wrestling? The idea that, certainly in North America, it's a one-man show right now.
Well, and I think you may underestimate the power of Vince there almost a little bit, in the sense that, you know, really, when you look at the World Wrestling Federation and you look at what the business is, you know, we're talking about a business who claims great power worldwide. I would almost suggest to anybody listening, I mean, think about the reality of it all, is what would the NFL do in India, and what does the WWF do in India? You know, there's certainly, you can certainly go, you know, they're going to draw an audience in India, because if they've got television there, people will come and see them, and it goes that way around the world. I mean, they'll sell out shows, especially when the business is good. I don't know how they're doing right now in Europe, but I would
They would do well, but they don't even have to go because their business is so strong
it's
here
so
now.
good at home. Exactly my point. So now you got the rest of the world watching his TV and hungry. You might have to question whether he's not bigger worldwide than anything else that America has to offer. And I would say, this is where I'm going to go out on the limb. And Vince is, I'm sure, if he should ever hear me say this, would cringe at the thought of this. But I would say the timing couldn't be more perfect. What needs to happen in the business? I thought it then. I think it now. I think the boys need representation. I've always believed in a union, partly because I came from a union family and I saw how the union protected my father in the steel mill, and looked after my family. So from a union standpoint, I'm certainly, I think union. I'm not sure a classic union would work in the wrestling business. I'm not sure it's the perfect answer, but I sure think that
nothing's perfect. There's flaws in every system. Yeah,
absolutely. Nothing's perfect, but I sure think I think, and you know what? I'm going to even go out on a further limb. I think AFTRA and what part of the Screen Actors Guild, could protect the boys if wrestling is entertainment. I almost have to say to the unions of the television and performers, shame on you for not, protecting those who can't protect themselves. And I'm certainly not talking about the top guys in the WWF, as in any other sport. When you form a union, you look out to protect the guys who are the supporting cast that, give you an hour and 25 minutes before you come out and are the star, and so I think the union concept is a concept that I pitch just simply and I've always pitched it, and quite frankly, it's probably one of the reasons that I'm blackballed in the wrestling business. But I really believe that a union is a must. And the sad part is none of the boys will do it, because by the time somebody says, hey, let's start a union, and they all go, yeah, by the time you get to the door, there won't be anybody behind you.
There's one guy.
Yeah, there'll be one guy standing there going,
and Vince,
we want to do a union.
And
so it's going to take a guy like me who's not in the business anymore to say, hey, Vince, I challenge you to expose the salaries of, and Rock, I'm doing you a favor right now, and Stone Cold, because I'm convinced after I do this interview I'll never go back to the business anyway. So, I've been quiet up till now, not really. I say I challenge you, Vince, to show your salaries in comparison to the other great athletes in the United States. And
compared to baseball players, I just looked at those baseball salaries last night on ESPN. That was pretty scary.
There's not one guy on the list from the WWF. Why?
Of the top probably 100 athletes, I bet there's not because there's so many baseball players that make so ungodly amount of money.
But here's the thing, though, you got to ask yourself. Think about baseball. How many baseball players are there in the United States? Now Vince just whittled it down to where there's 20 guys in the wrestling world making money.
Well, there's a little more than 20, but there's less than 100.
But the real money.
Yeah, real money.
Top players.
If you're talking about $1 million, there's a handful.
That's exactly my point. And don't you think that? I think that's a little ironic, considering these guys are doing 300 days a year on the road. They work harder than anybody else, or filling houses all over the United States, and yet they're not in the top 100 of paid
for the revenue they generate as compared to golfers, baseball players, football players. They're not even in the same league.
Not even in the ballpark, brother.
For the revenue they generate. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. Like, football players, basketball players will get 50% of the revenue of that sport, and wrestlers get 12%.
So I challenge the president of AFTRA to say, hey, what's going on here? These guys need protection. That's the bottom line. Somebody needs to look after them, and somebody that's smart to the business and can't be shoved around by Vince.
And let's head to the phone calls. We're going to start with Charles. Charles, how are you tonight?
Hey, how you doing, Dave? Max,
doing very
Ryan.
Good.
Hey.
Max, I actually enjoyed your character in WCW. I liked the Painkiller. I thought it was pretty over submission. And I disagree with you. I would like to have seen you and Cactus you and Mick work a program.
It may have been, you know what? It may have been good. I certainly, I just know I had so much fun with him as a partner that, you know what? You're probably right. Anything could have gone between Mick and I. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
it would have been fun.
And like I said, I really enjoyed your transition into that Painkiller. It looked like it was killing the guy, and I guess it was a pretty safe move. So
I'll tell you a funny story about that. One night we were in Alabama, and I was working. They put me out against a job guy, and if this kid's listening, I'll apologize to him again before I tell this story. We, he come in, and they brought him in the room. We were talking about the finish and stuff, and I said, okay, I'm going to do the painkiller, and I said, no problem, and he kind of looked at me a little funny. He said, yeah, no problem, we'll do it, right? So we went out, and we did something else prior to the painkiller. I don't remember exactly what it was, some kind of a slam or a tackle. And when he lit on his shoulder funny. He took a bad bump. And I think he was trying to do a 360 or something. And he took a bad bump and lit on his shoulder and dislocated his shoulder.
Oh, my God.
But he didn't smart me up to the fact that he'd hurt himself. So I put him in a painkiller and reset it.
Oh, my God.
And we got out of the ring, man. I felt so bad. He goes, dude, my shoulder was dislocated. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? I'd have thrown you out of the ring or something, Because, bam, I put him in the painkiller. But, hey, I saved him the money,
Yeah,
saved him the money going to the doctor, so.
The move actually had chiropractic properties as well.
That's
outstanding. Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Let me run a few things by you on this WCW, WWF thing. I think they started it off smart by, the McMahons are kind of the stars of their company, so pitting Vince against Shane and turning WCW face. I think that was a good move, but as far as the TV spots that they're considering, I don't know. The more I think about it, I don't see it being able to work unless you really continue to build this thing up as something major that at some point is going to lead to Shane taking over SmackDown and maybe getting The Rock or something. Otherwise, it's not gonna. It's not a consistent gimmick. You know what I mean?
Oh no, they need to. The problem is that you need two relatively equal in power sides to have a good feud.
Exactly.
And right now, the 24 guys that they have signed from WCW, I mean, the biggest stars are Lance Storm and Mike Awesome. That's not enough star power. So they got to send guys, and they can't send Billy Gunn and Test and think that that's the answer, because then that'll only make it worse. Well, they got to have. I mean, The Rock or Triple H, one of those two's got to be there, or you're really going to have problems.
I agree with you 100%. Without,
I think Jericho's all right.
No. I mean, there's nothing wrong with sending Jericho, but he can't be the number one guy either.
Yeah, you probably should send the Radicals back in because they have an association with the company, but you ultimately are going to have to send one of your top guys. It would have to either be, I would have said Hunter and the entire clique before this latest Shawn Michaels incident, but now I'm leaning towards probably The Rock being the guy that you got to send.
I think from a scheduling standpoint, The Rock is better. The thing I mean, there's nothing wrong with sending Benoit and some of those guys. I would almost rather not send the guys that were there before, because then it just looks sort of like, you know what I mean? It's like they've already been there. They've already wrestled a lot of those guys.
So nothing unique about it.
Yeah, I would rather elevate those guys within the WWF structure and send guys over there that have never been there before. So at least that way you have some, a unique environment for them. And plus, the one thing is, if The Rock is there, that's their best shot at doing ratings from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. If they send, say just Benoit or somebody like that, the average WWF fan isn't going to watch another show. If it becomes SmackDown, not SmackDown, but it becomes like Heat or Jacked or something like that, and the Heat ratings right now in prime time are not very good. And I mean, there's your answer right there. Is Heat is doing between a 1.5 and a 2, 1.6 to a 2 generally most weeks. I think they did 2.2 a week ago. But I mean, in that range. And for this thing to be successful, it's got to do better than that in a worse time slot. So you've got to have more star power than you got on Heat.
I'm thinking I'm thinking in order for it to work, Dave, it's gonna have to be the second show. They're gonna have to give them a WCW Smackdown. And
that's not gonna happen right away.
You mean a second WCW show, or have SmackDown turn into?
No. Have SmackDown become WCW.
Exactly, as part of the storyline.
Ultimately, you're right, Charles.
It's the SmackDown show.
If they do some gimmick where in September one side, they get SmackDown. Then you have a real chance at a money feud at that point.
And I'm thinking
they're like they have equal team TV.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be best for the writers too, because then you can just concentrate on the two major shows, and it looks like an equal feud at that point. And I'm thinking storyline wise, it even has to get to the point where it's going to look like WCW may win, and then you'd have to introduce the third element to turn on Shane, forcing Shane to side back with the WWF, thus turning the main company face again.
The other thing about what you said, which actually I really like that idea, and you can't do it right away, but at some point, it also, I think, will help each individual show. It'll help Raw, because all of a sudden those other guys, you can only see them once a week. One of the problems I think that there is now is that you see everyone twice a week. So if you miss, it makes it more easy to miss a show right now.
I agree.
Plus, there's so many replays, you can miss a show.
And not only that, I think you're looking at a problem of tremendous overexposure of the product, because if you think about it now, even though it is less wrestling to watch a week per se, it's more of the exact same product.
It's more of the same wrestling, so that's right. So it's overexposure of the product, not the product wrestling, but the product WWF.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking ultimately it's going to have to come down to between those two shows. WWF keeps Raw, and Shane somehow finagles his father out of the Smackdown contract, and he takes over, makes a WCW Smackdown, and he gets the Rock contract or something like that. And in fact, you're almost going to have to do that if the WCW superstars are going to sit this thing out.
Yeah,
but WCW gets Raw.
Oh, either way.
That would be interesting.
There's nothing wrong with that. Even better. The same premise.
I mean, SmackDown, I think that overall the rating is probably a little higher for SmackDown, and it's the, it's the broadcast show. But, Raw has the name. That's been the show since day one, or whatever, since the war started, so give them that one.
It would be viewed as a bigger coup to take Raw in the story.
Yeah, and it really wouldn't be. Yeah. But to the fans, it would be.
Yeah, exactly. Which is going to make the story more interesting. Yeah, I would agree with all of that. Dave, has there been any more word of where any of the top guys, like Flair and some of the others, stand on this thing?
Flair's got 2 years left on a contract that pays $800,000 a year. And that is a lot to turn away. I would say, and I'm sure I'll know more about this one, certainly by Monday. But I think that the odds of Flair going there are less than 50%. I can tell you right now they're way less than 50%. I mean, they may, again, if Vince wants anybody bad enough, he's going to get them. Yeah. It's just a question of how bad he wants them. But, Flair going there, from what I understand the facts to be, the odds are a lot less than I thought they were yesterday. Put it that way.
Dave, you're Vince McMahon. Who's the key guy that you really go after?
I'm never going to be Vince McMahon.
Well, just hypothetically speaking, who's the key guy that you go after to break this whole thing open and kind of make everybody else trickle in?
You certainly got to make a hell of an offer for Goldberg because it's the match the fans want. I mean, we heard it all week. The emails I get is Steve Austin, Bill Goldberg is the match that everybody wants. And that's why, to me, putting Gilbert in the Battle Royal or mentioning Bill Goldberg on TV, unless you're going to get him, you don't want everyone dreaming for this one match. We can't wait for this match that you're not going to deliver. It's totally counterproductive.
Yeah. Well,
how does this whole contract thing work as far as, what does Turner have? Do they have the ability to keep him off even sitting in the front row? Is it just wrestling? What is it?
Well, I mean, theoretically exclusive. I mean, the whole thing is that, you can't put someone on there when they have an existing contract with someone else. And, Turner, these guys would rather sit and collect their Turner money because it's guaranteed or Time Warner money, as opposed to going on the road, you're going on the road and making less money. It makes no sense. Than to sit at home and collect it. There are those 10 guys, whoever they are. But those are the 10 top guys for them. Not quite 10 top guys, but for the most part, they're the top
Another thing with the WWF, though, is you have to factor in, the mainstream exposure. I mean, if Rock were making $1 million in WCW, let's just say he was a WCW guy, and this whole thing happened, and he was making, say, $2 million a year, and it was up to him to decide whether he was going to go to WWF for, a $400,000 downside or keep his $2 million a year. I mean, what he's gotten in WWF is he's become a huge star. He's got movie deals, a book that just did huge. And, can Goldberg get that? Can he get a movie deal? Can he get, a book deal? I mean, his book did okay.
He's already done the book. The movies, he'll either get it or, he won't. But yeah, you're right. There's upsides. There's upsides to going, but the difference between $2 million a year and $400,000 a year, I don't know if that's, and then you're risking that you're going to make another $1.6 million, plus you're going to be out on the road all those days as opposed to not being on the road. I mean, they're all factors to take into consideration.
Well, I tell you this, the WWF promotional vehicle is still very strong, so there is potential for those guys to recoup a lot of that money. And, the factor of your face not being on TV for a while, does that drive your value up or bring it down?
We don't know because we don't know what the marketplace is going to be. 3 years from now, it may drive your value up because they're going to need somebody big, and there you are out there as a free agent, or the business may be through the roof and everyone may have just forgotten who you were. Although, what, guys?
Ask Daryl what he would have done.
What? Yeah, what's that? Yeah. What in a situation, let's put you in the Bill Goldberg situation, okay?
Yeah.
You got basically 2.5 years, at let's say $2.5 million a year, to sit at home, or you have a chance to go to the WWF with no. Let's just say your guarantee is $500,000 a year, but you can make it up theoretically. I mean, if you're in the main event at WrestleMania, you might even be able to make the same amount of money. But you're going on the road. You're 250 days a year. What would you want, and what would you be thinking as far as making that decision?
Well, I'm probably not the perfect guy to ask that in the sense that, for me, it's an easy decision. I'd stay home with my family. I mean, if you're guaranteed that kind of money at some point, I mean, that's a lot of money,
It's a lot of money.
And not have to do anything. I mean, if he's obviously been content to be off the air right. How long has he been off right now?
He was off in January. They did the loser or the loser must retire match.
I mean, everybody wants to see it. There's no question about it. Will it still be alive in 2.5 years? I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, if he just took the money and sat at home for 2.5 years, is that the question?
The question is, do you take the money, or do you go back on the road, or do you go on the road and figure that,
it's not even. I mean, the road's hard, and if you get $2.5 million for sitting at home, buy a case of Jolly Time and hang 10 and watch movies and watch your kids grow up for 2.5 years and enjoy life.
Yeah. Plus,
because
the other thing is
still going to be around. You'll be healthy. You work out every day. Everything will be great. So I would just say stay home and take the money.
Dave, I just have two more things. Does Turner Time Warner have any type of negotiation leverage at all on these contracts, or are they just set in stone?
In what sense? I mean, as far as not paying them?
Yeah, or getting them to renegotiate the contract and settle.
Well, they can try to buy them out, but the other guy has to agree to it, or they can try to find a breach somewhere. But these guys, I tell you what, in that situation,
what can they be breaching right now?
Well, they better try
not being at home.
Well, let me ask you this: Can they, since technically they're still employees, can they say, well, if we're going to pay you, you guys have to come do some type of work for us?
No, they only if it's wrestling, because they're wrestling contracts, not employee contracts. So yeah, if they were to open up a wrestling company, they could, which they can't do because I'm sure they're signing a non-compete. Because they're not getting $10 million or whatever it is from Vince, and then reopening next week. So it's basically
So is that the deal? $10 million?
What? 10 to 20, somewhere in that range is what's been. I don't
know
the exact number.
WCW?
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Does he have to honor the contracts too, or does somebody else honor?
No. He bought the contracts he wants. He bought 24 contracts, which were all the lower paid guys. He didn't buy any of the top guys' contracts, so he doesn't have to honor any of them.
Well,
Turner has to take care of the contracts.
What incentive would any of these guys have to go work for somebody else if they did open up a?
That's
company?
nothing.
The incentive is if they just want to be in the spotlight or not. And the thing is also with some of these guys, you got to look at. And Goldberg doesn't fit into this one because he's relatively young. He's 34. But like with Page, and certainly with Flair, you're talking about guys, Page is in his mid-40s, Flair's 52, that, it's like with Flair.
They better hope they save their money well.
Yeah, but the thing with Flair, okay, like he's got 2 years at $800,000. Now you can go in there and go, you know what? Maybe he can make almost as much with Vince. But you know what? It's like he's got to make that much and more because you're talking about road expenses as well that he would have. And at 54, it's like he's not going to have a third year at 54 to make up, let's say, what he didn't make in these 2 years. So for his family, unless Vince is going to offer...
when Flair was 40, though.
Oh, come on. He's not going to be wrestling when he's 54. He's barely wrestling now. But, unless... the whole thing is, I think for most of these guys is they're going to have to get an offer pretty darn close to what they're making, or why turn it down? Unless
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't see. Booker's going to go, but I don't know, and Steiner. The thing with Steiner is Steiner doesn't need to wrestle. I think he does it because he wants to, or whatever the thing motivates him. I'm talking about Scott. Because Scott's already got his money, but again, there's just whatever different things motivate you. But if you, boy, if you're in your mid-40s and you've got this kind of money coming in, it's pretty stupid to walk away from it and just for the ego rush of working for the WWF, I think.
Yeah.
And yet some of them probably will, though. Well, Dave, thank you. And I wanted to thank you personally again for your help earlier in the week. And believe me, we will continue to bend your ear on getting advice on this FMLL thing.
Okay, and just let us know how the shows are going and when you get lineups and things like that. We can always promote them and stuff.
Yeah, we're going to do something the day after Cinco de Mayo. We're actually getting some sponsorship from a radio station, so we're going to run 2 shows simultaneously on that day, and we'll split the main event. And we'll split the crew, and we'll have the main event at the top of both shows, and those are going to be free. So we're expecting huge turnouts for those.
Okay, cool.
Okay, guys, thank you very much, and thanks, Matt and Brian.
The Bobby Heenan thing and Gene Okerlund thing is a one-time thing, at least for now. I mean, they're just doing it for the one match. They're not signed to go full-time with the WWF. I guess it's a possibility that they could be the announcers on the WCW show. Those decisions have not been made yet, though. But
I don't know if I would do both of them together on that show. I'd like to split them up. If they're going to use both of them, maybe.
Well, they could always use Gene to do the interviews and have Heenan do the color and then get a play-by-play guy.
Put someone with Heenan.
Yeah, there are possibilities. Man, it's a possibility. I don't know. It's one of the things.
They haven't announced Lawler at Access yet.
He's not there. I think Lawler. Well, let's see. Any word on how long Benoit and Angle will be given? Let's say 15 minutes, roughly. I got a feeling. It could be a little more or a little less. They should get an hour. No one's getting an hour, I don't think. Rock and Austin may get a long time. They do got 4 hours to fill. Let's see. This is from someone who goes, about the WWF being big in Europe. There's no WWF in all of Scandinavia, and Germany no longer shows Raw or SmackDown. The only countries that are going to be showing WrestleMania are the UK live and France on a tape delay. So they're really, really... So they don't have German TV. No wonder we get so much feedback on the website from England. The countries we get the big feedback on, besides the United States and Canada, it's really England, very little Australia, and a decent amount Japan. Is that pretty much it? Do you get feedback from other places, Brian?
That's pretty much it.
England far more than any other country, except for United States and Canada. Let's go.
I think we got a lot of India for a while there.
India?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember anything from there. I mean, a little bit in other countries too. Let's go to Chris. What's going on?
Hi, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
I was looking at I downloaded that preview while I was actually on hold and watched the preview of the movie that he was talking about. Mm-hmm. When is that going to be available, or is it available now to buy?
Well, I actually just kind of put the preview together to see what kind of a response, how much interest it generated, and I've got it. I'm going to set my goal of having it ready to go within 4 to 6 weeks. The completed the whole movie package and everything, because one of my problems, the only thing that's got me stopped up right now is music production, because I'm producing all the music on that movie as well. The band the song I used on there is one of the bands I produced, and then we've got 4 or 5 other bands, as well as my own music is on the movie, and that's the only thing that's holding me up right now.
Okay.
Do you think there'd be any legal problems with the WWF?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Well, I'm sure there will be. I'm sort of geared up for that, The reality of it is I would love to talk to Vince about this, I mean, because quite frankly, it's something that has to be seen. It's a great. I think it's a great story, not just because I'm in it. I just think it's a hell of a look that nobody's ever seen, and I think it can do a lot for the business. I think there's some bad things, but I also think there's some incredible things.
I think he's going to be a little bit leery after the last couple of years of.
He's not good about movies. I mean, every one of those movies has resulted in some sort of an attempt to either sabotage or lawsuits.
Well, and of course, because he can't control that environment. But the one thing about I'll just say this is there's always the Tommy Lee and Pamela thing. Once it gets out, there's nothing that can be done. So,
how about if I'm
at a point where I think it's such a cool deal that if I have to, I'll give it away.
Now, if Vince came to you and said, "Look, I don't want this thing getting out. I'll give you $5 million for this movie.
Well,
so
then
of course
you would take the $5 million.
Destroy
That'd be
it.
silly.
Well,
you
know the funny part about me, guys. You know, and I know you're gonna think, you know, Max, shut up. This is crazy. You know, the reality for me is, man, I tell you from the bottom of my heart, I'm a musical guy. I mean, I love to make music. I've spent my whole life wanting to do it. It really was the disjointed thing for me when I was doing wrestling. I always dreamed about doing music, and I'm going to do music. And I'll tell you what, I've got a circle of the most incredibly talented young musicians around me right now you can imagine. And $5 million right now would put all of these young acts and would really ensure for me. And really all I want out of this is the ability to promote my own products. I really do. I want to help the bands that I work with. There's some really incredible talent out here where I live. And I really just want to be somebody that turns around and invests that money in other young talent and just do music the rest of my life. I know that sounds, rather simple, but that's the reality of it all. That's my goal in life, is to do music the rest of my life. So, I don't care about the money, though. I think, in one sense, I mean, that would be nice to have that, but I think this movie will land me all kinds of other things just simply because it's one of those things that when you see it, it's pretty fascinating take, and it was all orchestrated basically by me.
Yeah,
that's not an ego thing. I'm just saying I just had the wherewithal to take my camera with me and have created a really cool documentary of what it's like to be on the road as a wrestler. And quite frankly, I think the world needs to see that.
Just from the preview, I saw it, and I was just like, I was hooked to it. I just wanted to see the whole thing. So
that makes you feel really good. Well, then you know what, man? With people like you that are out there, if the emails and the responses I get are like that, it's going to be a difficult. I don't know what I'd do. If Vince said, here's the money, take it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'd do. It's one of those deals where.
Well, I wouldn't blame you for taking it. I mean, there's a lot of super fans out there that
But he's not gonna offer it though.
Oh no, I know. I'm just saying.
No, he's not going to do that. That's for sure not. That's not Vince's style. And the reality of it all is, I'm sure. I'm pretty confident that I'll be hearing from his legal staff.
Well, how much like does Vince hold over that as far as
I don't know
on property, or is it because
to me they have no claim. I'll just be honest with you, because first of all, when you see the whole thing, you'll know I'm telling you the truth. The agents knew I was doing it. I got them telling jokes on camera.
Yeah, you can see the look on everybody's face.
It's not like nobody knew that I wasn't taking video. They didn't have to participate. They could have said, turn that off, I don't want to be involved. But nobody did. Everybody was involved.
Right.
And therefore, they knew I had a camera. I mean, when I took it into the ring, I'm not exploiting the interior wrestling characters, and it's not really an exploitation. It's merely a look that the wrestling business is not going to allow you to look at. That they don't want you to see. They don't want you to see this kind of a movie.
I think if everybody just knowing how well Beyond the Mat and everything did, just especially for the inside fans and the internet type fans, if they caught a look at that movie, they would absolutely you'd have a definite interest in that. I don't have any question about it.
My goal is, to be quite honest with you, I'll tell you where I want to go with this, because it is a two-level story. It's not just about behind the wrestling scenes. It's also about somebody who, took it right to the edge, man. I went right to the edge of the wrestling business and, could have had it all, but didn't make it. I'm the underdog, man. I'm the guy that, was right there tasting it all and involved in it all, and for whatever reason, I didn't make it. And I think that's an incredible story for people to just sit down and look at.
As far as, did you have any, as far as the upper guys, did you get along with everybody as far as the boys go? Did you have any the political
Well, I'm pretty
problems?
confident that the reason that I didn't go any further was because of Kevin Nash and Scott Hall.
I was going to add, okay.
Oh, my God. I never heard that before.
That is a shocker.
Yeah, that is
I know that's hard to believe, isn't it? But, when you see the tape...
That's almost shocking as Brian Adams being lazy.
Gosh, I just keep going.
You've got some revelations on this show today.
Maybe I can give you some revelations. It's just one of those things where, I can't tell you how many times I heard, do you honestly believe a fat, ugly guy can get over? And I went,
Do you remember my favorite Kevin Nash was the day, it was the day that, I think it was the day he pushed that finger into Hulk Hogan. And they were all laughing, and he lost the world title to Hulk Hogan. And they were all laughing because WWF had just made Foley world champion. And he just goes, doesn't Vince realize that unless, to be the world champion, you've got to be someone that all the guys want to be like and all the girls want to be with. And I'm just thinking, and that's why Mick Foley was going to be a big disaster.
You got to have the word
champion.
Mark tattooed on your forehead, too. My God, Kevin. Wow.
I guess he just doesn't realize that there's people out there that appreciate guys like Foley and guys that work hard, and
well,
that's just...
I think Foley turned out to be a pretty big star, but it was like, the other one, and Brian, you probably heard this one a lot, was the people don't recognize them at the airport. Not recognize, but when you walk in an airport, that was the old reason why they always wanted to push. You remember Van Hammer, of course, right, Max?
Oh, my God, do I remember Van Hammer?
Because Van Hammer, a big muscular guy, and when, you see a big muscular guy in the airport, you kind of do a double take. And it's like, see, people recognize him at the airport, whereas like some guy like Juventud Guerrera, who has more, ability in his pinky, it's just, he's a normal-sized guy, so, it's like, but what does that matter? We're not at airports. Like, that's not, the game isn't how many people
when you start running shows at airports.
And I'll be honest with you, it never bummed me out not to be noticed in an airport, because an airport's not some place that you go, boy, here's a great place for a photo op. It's like, for the love of God, I'm trying to get on a plane and get to my next destination. Come to the arena or whatever. It's one of those times in your life where you want to just be as much like everybody else as you can. So, that's crazy.
Okay.
Did you ever see Wrestling with Shadows or Beyond the Mat?
I did.
What'd you think?
I saw the one with Brett.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear my honest opinion, or do you want me to
No, we only want honest opinions.
I got to tell you, I was totally offended. I'm just going to tell you my gut instinct on this.
Okay.
Because I'm a wrestler, and I know Bret Hart, and I know that if what happened, I based it on this, just knowing the business. If Vince McMahon came to ringside after he'd screwed me in a shoot, for real, and stole my title, and Sean and him were in cahoots, I would have, and in my hometown, in front of my home people, I guarantee you, I would have beat his ass right in front of everybody.
Well, he did it in front of
people. He spit on Vince McMahon from inside the ring, and I know Bret Hart well enough to know that right there was the whole part that when I went, this whole thing's a work.
It's not.
I really believe that whole thing was
seriously, no, I can tell. This is one of the things I actually can tell you for sure. It's not.
Well,
he did punch Vince McMahon later that night.
Well, you know what, Dave, you might be right, but I tell you, I watched it from, I got a T-shirt on my website that says at least 180, and I watched it the first time, and I was right with you. Then I watched it again, and I went, oh my God, they swerved. I mean, because the reality of it is this. This is the only thing else I got to say. I'm not going to try and change anybody's opinion, but I guarantee you, whenever Vince McMahon has a camera on him, he's acting.
Vince is always acting. No doubt about that.
Vince was in that, and for him to show up with a black eye, the makeup was bad. I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy any of it. I thought it was.
Okay.
I thought it was.
No, the one thing I was going to say about that is, after that, there's a lot of reasons I can say this, but if they had pulled off an angle that great, and an angle that today, almost 3.5 years later, people still talk about, why didn't Bret ever go back to work for him and make money off the angle?
I think there's a lot of reasons.
Okay.
I think that, you certainly, first of all, it couldn't have manifested itself because the worst possible scenario happened. Bret's brother died in the WWF. So there's no way he could go back. Even now, I really believe that it was a coup. But Bret, from a pride standpoint, I know if it was my brother, I certainly couldn't like Vince McMahon after that.
Yeah.
Especially in my opinion, the way it was handled.
He didn't like him before that. I mean, after that,
I think you're right,
thing
but
was
I
10 times
believe
worse.
Vince said, go get the money, and if you ever need a job, you can come back. Let's set up a good work so we can get you as much money as you possibly can have and turn you babyface in your hometown. I believe Vince has enough respect for the business and the boys to do that. I really do.
No, he wanted to kill him because he was afraid that what he was afraid of was that because Bret was so big in Canada at that time, and WCW was dead in Canada and still is, that all of a sudden it would open up this market that he had, and I think he wanted to, take Brett down, and it ended up backfiring. Although WCW went and blew the opportunity.
It didn't totally kill Brett, though. I mean, as far as financially, because he made a ton of money going over to WCW.
Brett made a ton of money. No, Brett made a ton of money with the WCW deal. WCW was the one who blew it with Brett. As far as using.
Dave, it's just hard for me to believe. Man, when there's a camera around, you're not seeing real Vince. That's all. That's the best argument I have.
No,
if there's a camera on Vince McMahon, that's not real Vince McMahon.
There is no real Vince.
You know what?
You've been around Vince with no camera. It's still the same.
I'll disagree with that in principle. I've sat with him in his office, and I've seen a real Vince. I've seen a different side of Vince, and I think the boys that have sat with him and have seen that, that side of Vince, there's something different when you sit with him in Titan and you're talking about, the nuance of a new character and, trying to develop and get going in the business with the WWF. I would have to say that's probably the closest to real Vince I ever saw. I never saw it again either. So
you know what's funny is the first time I saw Wrestling with Shadows, which was before it ever came out, when they sent me the preview, when it was over, my first reaction was, oh my God, anyone watching this that knows anything is going to think it's a work, and I knew it wasn't, and I go because it just fit so well.
Yeah,
it was just this weird thing. They had too much access.
Everything was perfect.
Everything was so perfect.
That's the part
like the Julie Hunter thing. I mean, that was so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like but
what I do know what you mean. I'll tell you why. Because when you watch my movie, I really believe people are going to think the same thing. Because there's some things that happen on camera, you're going to go, oh my God. You're just not going to. You're going to go, this is all BS.
I thought the funniest part of it in the preview was seeing Kevin Nash hold up that bag of money, and it was just kind of symbolic while he's just sitting there holding this clear bag
I
of
thought
cash.
that was appropriate for this week, wasn't it? And then the handful of pills behind it.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate mail from those guys.
Oh boy!
But from the Beak, I don't care about. From Paul, I Triple H, I used to have respect for him, but I got to tell you, man, I was good. And Kevin Nash as well. I'll say this right out, and I'll face those punks anywhere, because you know what, Kevin Nash, I was never anything but good to Kevin Nash. When I lived in Atlanta, I was always kind. I always respected him. He was under me, and I was nobody. You know what I mean? He was still doing nothing. He was kicking dirt clods when I was in Atlanta. And, it's one of those things where I lived in the apartment building with him. I lived in the apartment building with Hogg and with Dennis Knight and, all those guys, and I was good to them. When Paul Levesque came to the WCW and did jobs as terrorizing, I used to intentionally sit with the job guys because I couldn't stand sitting in the ego room. Because the job guys were real, those guys were alive and came there and, oh my God, I can't wait to work. And even though it was putting somebody over, they knew that was their destiny. I had so much respect for them. And, I would watch those egos roll in every day, and Kevin as well. And you know what? That's just not where I didn't want nothing to do with that kind of a lifestyle. And I'm sad, looking back in retrospect, how good I was to those guys. I thought they were my friends. I really did. And I've never heard from... I know, like I said, I know Kevin and Scott buried me. I know and that's one thing I want Vince to see in this movie is how over my gimmick was in Europe, because the people are popping. You can't deny what happens in this movie when you see the whole thing, that the people really dug it and they really given me an opportunity to explore this thing. Give me a year, to really see what could come of the musical side. Things could have happened, but guys like Kevin, who I thought were my friends, went up there and I'm sure just did everything they could do to bury me. And I don't know why.
Do you think they just feared that gimmick could have worked, and they, just like any other case?
But what would you care? What would you care if it's going to make everybody money?
Oh no, I know what you're saying, but they've done that in WCW.
It very well could have been. It was hard for me to think like that because I always thought the deal was to try and fill the seats.
Yeah.
I'd figured out a long time ago it wasn't about the girls and the drugs and going up and down the road. The gimmick was to try and bring the fans out,
That's
and
the
fill
gimmick.
the seats.
It's not even the pops. It's the filling the seats. That's the business.
That's
right.
the deal. That's what you do. Your
it's
job
not getting recognized
is to
at the
entertain
airports or
people
anything else. Yeah.
And get them to come and put their butts in those seats and then we'll take it from there. Vince doesn't have a problem getting it from there.
Well, that's what those guys did in WCW, though, over the last couple of years. That's one of the reasons.
They've all just stole livings. That's why. That's the danger of the union side right there.
Well, they put everybody down that had a chance of getting up. That's why I'm saying, I mean, as far as their logic should have been, let those guys come up so we have somebody to work with.
We have somebody new to work with in fresh matches.
Too. But once that click, I've heard you guys already use the click word. Once that thing's in place, if you're not a part of it, you're not a part of it. And in fairness to them, sometimes, I was just the kind of guy that would go overboard the other way to piss everybody off as much as I can because they pissed me off so bad. The bodybuilder guys, they all walked around looking in the mirror all day, and all they cared about was, the stuff to me that I was like, wait a minute. There's more to this than meets the eye. You're missing the bigger picture. And, they always looked down their nose at me, so therefore I could never be a part of that clique. So
Max, we actually got to go. We got to run because we're totally out of time. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank you very much for doing the show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in all week. And thanks Brian and Al and everybody else, all the callers. And we will be back Sunday night at midnight.